All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you're new. Back here with another stream after an 8-hour stream. I do see some people asking where the reaction to the Game Awards stream went. It's currently not available because it basically got copyrighted like crazy, and there are actually multiple copyrights that are blocking it from being viewed. And yeah, bit of a nightmare considering it's an 8-hour stream, how long it would take to correct that. So I figured what we could do is a bit of a follow-up today where we talk about some things that happened at the Game Awards. Astrobot taking home the gold, Astrobot sweeping it. Love to see it. Naughty Dog revealing their new game, and just reviewing the Game Awards in general, talking about what we saw. By the time we were finished talking or watching the Game Awards last night, I was pretty fried, very tired and exhausted. So I'm not even, I don't even remember half of what I said, to be honest. So I was like practically delirious. I needed to go to sleep desperately. But and yeah, we did take the hat off in yesterday's stream. Yeah. But yeah, man. Got a direct donation notification from Ivory saying, "I'm really excited for Intergalactic. Naughty Dog never disappoints. People want to complain without even seeing gameplay. Great stream last night. Big IPs." Well, thank you for that, Ivory. Yeah. If there's something that has become abundantly clear to me as somebody who covers mostly PlayStation. I mean, we cover other things here on the channel, but we are a PlayStation focused channel, a PlayStation centric channel. If there's something that's become abundantly clear to me, is that it doesn't really matter what Sony chooses to announce anymore. It's going to be polarizing to a certain degree. The only thing I would say that was not polarizing this year for PlayStation was probably Astrobot, for good reason. I mean, I feel like you'd have to really, truly go very far out of your way to find a reason to be hypercritical towards Astrobot. So you could say Helldivers 2, but even with that, Sony made the decision with the PlayStation Network sign-in, and that caused polarization. And there was that big update for Helldivers 2 that caused some polarization. So outside of that, literally every single thing Sony does at this point in time is going to be polarizing. And I'll be honest with you guys, like, I'm just getting exhausted. I am. I'm getting exhausted with seeing people constantly fighting over what I think is mostly nonsense, because in my opinion, there is a difference between people just kind of arguing and, expressing their frustrations towards one another and having genuine, interesting conversations, kind of dissecting the nuances of the gaming medium. And I think the difference between those two things is on display right now. Jerry Gamer, thank you so much for kicking off the day, dropping a membership gift. Very much appreciate that. I will add that to the counter, my friend. But I got to ask you guys, were you surprised to see that Astrobot won Game of the Year? Were you surprised to see this? Because I have to be honest, I was caught off guard. I mean, I'm not saying I was like truly flabbergasted and like, oh my God, how is this even possible? It's not like that level, but I was definitely like, whoa, I didn't think Astro was going to take it this year. I just didn't think it was going to happen. Very deserved, man. I'm very happy to see that Astro won. I am. Like, I feel like it was such a good game. And I really enjoyed Team Asobi's speech. Instant Messenger Sama, you're saying Fumito Ueda's new title was the highlight of the show. Iron Giant meets Shadow of the Colossus is a great concept, and his games share the same world. Yeah, that trailer was really interesting. I did enjoy what I saw in that trailer. It was very short but sweet, and it did give me Shadow of the Colossus vibes. I didn't play their other titles, and people have been recommending them to me for years now, and it's one of those things where they're on my backlog. Maybe I'll get to it one day. Who knows? But I disagree with that. You're saying, let's be honest here, Astro was awesome, but Wukong is 10 times more worthy. Just look at the sales numbers. No, I highly disagree with that. A game selling better doesn't make it more, I would say, worthy of a game of the year. I think Black Myth Wukong could have won game of the year and it would have been worthy. Like, yeah, I think it is a game of the year contender, but I don't agree that, I have seen some people downplaying Astrobot's win, and I think that's a little bit disingenuous. I'm not saying you're doing that, but I think that is disingenuous because it's like, bro, Astrobot is a killer game. Like, it may not necessarily be for you or the most exciting game for everybody, who people who are just not into platformers, but it's a killer game, dude. Zenzo76 with a $10 super chat says, so I just have to say this because it really bothers me. Why does everyone get pissed at Sony for exclusives, but if it's Xbox or Nintendo, it's fine? PC with Xbox, but still, all of them have exclusives. Yeah, I don't understand that mentality either. I don't. I do think that Sony does still care to a certain extent about exclusivity. I think that's kind of obvious. But I think at the same time, Microsoft still cares about exclusivity to a certain extent, just not nearly as much. And same with Nintendo. Obviously, Nintendo, we don't really need to factor them in too much. I think people are a little bit more forgiving of Nintendo because Nintendo has never wavered, ever. Like, they're just hardline stance. Our games are exclusive. They always will be. Period. End of discussion. Please buy it. And I think it creates this kind of feeling within people where it's like, okay. I think ever since Sony decided to dabble into bringing games to PC and being a little bit more open to that and a little bit more free flowing, it has caused other people who play on these platforms to kind of poke a little bit and be like, Sony, come on, exclusivity's bad. Exclusivity's bad. They're going to do that because if they can convince Sony of that, if they can convince everybody else of that, then maybe there's a chance Sony will go full multi-plat or not really care about exclusives. What's up, Corey? That's my guess. Anyways, Enzo. I don't know why people get mad. Like, exclusivity is always going to be part of this industry because it's just part of, I would say, all entertainment to some degree. I mean, even if the day comes where there's no consoles, right? And these are just platforms and storefronts that exist on all devices, you're still going to see these platforms trying to offer some type of exclusive content. We see it even with streaming services. So it's always going to exist. And anybody who doesn't understand that, I think, just fails to understand that the goal at the end of the day is to get people onto your platform. And a very proven method to do that is with exclusive content, whether it be timed or otherwise. They are delusional. Yes, some of them are. So Zenzo, thank you for the super chat, buddy. We also have Jerry Gamer saying CN majority is rage. Everyone bashing Astro. Sad. I mean, it is sad if people are bashing Astro. I'll be honest, I haven't been looking too much. I went to sleep after my stream last night, or not too long after it. And I was looking around a little bit. I didn't see much conversation happening around Astro, but anybody who's bashing Astro for winning Game of the Year, I just think it's weak. I think that's a weak argument. I think it shows a lack of respect to a degree where it's like I think we should be able to look at all the game of the year contenders and acknowledge that they probably deserve to be up there. I mean, the only one that I think is a little bit more complicated is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree because it's DLC, because it's not a separate game release. So I can understand why some people are more critical of that. But yeah, Astrobot is a 10 out of 10 game. It is. And I think if you play Astrobot, even like I say this as somebody who's not even really into, I'm not even really that into platformers at all. But I was really pleasantly surprised, genuinely pleasantly surprised at how good this game was. Where I'm like, man, it kind of has its hooks in me. And the PlayStation nostalgia, I will say, Astrobot winning Game of the Year, considering Astrobot is a celebration, it is a celebration of PlayStation's history. It winning Game of the Year on PlayStation's 30th anniversary or during the 30th anniversary month. I mean, that's that's pretty perfect, honestly. Not many things I would say are perfect, but that to me seems kind of perfect. Doesn't really get any better than that. And they released some free DLC, some Christmas themed DLC. The director thanked Nintendo. Yeah, I saw that. And that was interesting to me. I don't know how Sony feels about that, but you know what? Respect where it's due. This is why I respect Team Asobi and uh, the director of that studio, because I feel like not many other teams would do something like that, especially knowing they're a Sony owned team. And they were giving their respects. They're like, listen, we may have achieved this in one game of the year, but we can't deny that, Super Mario Bros. And what Nintendo has done. Like, I mean, that was one of the biggest things that people pointed out about Astrobot is they're like, man, this seems like a Nintendo game. It's very inspired by Mario, and it is. It is. And so it's just very cool to see that level of humility on display where even in their highest moment where they definitely have the opportunity to embrace the, the win, they're still being humble about it. I think that's very respectable. And how could you not love Team Asobi, dude? I'm sorry. How could you not love Team Asobi? I know a lot of people were wanting Black Myth Wukong to win, but I don't know, man. Black Myth Wukong, I still think showed up. It won, I think it won at least one major award. But, it was a good game, and it could have won Game of the Year, but I'm definitely not upset. I'm actually very happy that Astrobot won. I still am kind of shocked that they took, that they swept it, man. I was not expecting that. Sobi's getting shut down after that Nintendo comment. Oh, man. Jim Ryan made the right call. He did. I know some people are not going to want to hear that, but we got to give credit where it's due. And there's no denying that Jim Ryan deciding we're going to shut down PlayStation or Sony Japan, but instead we're gonna create a new Japanese studio, Team Asobi, and they're gonna work on Astrobot. We're gonna put all of our focus on that. Um, that's actually a Jim Ryan win for sure because Japan Studio went from being a bit of a, I don't want to say a mess, but a little bit all over the place. And apparently some of their games were really not doing well and they weren't selling. Were getting like critical praise. They went from that to, after restructuring and rebranding of this of, the studio and reorganizing, winning Game of the Year in 2024. That's very impressive. I think that's very impressive. Saying predicted Astrobot Game of the Year months ago with videos on the channel to prove it. The Christmas level on Astrobot is so beautifully done. Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it. I'm going to be checking it out very soon. And they did say it's not meant to be challenging. It's just meant to be fun. And I really like that they did that. Tio on Tap, a member for 6 months, says, "What if Sony thought Concord was going to be a success? So when Naughty Dog came to them with a Concord-like art style, Sony greenlit the game." It's an interesting theory, and I do think there is some truth to that. Yeah, I don't think that's. I think there could be some truth to that. I don't think that's a far off theory. Um, Neil Druckmann confirmed yesterday that this game, Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, this game has been in development since 2020. So that means they started work on it immediately after wrapping up The Last of Us Part 2. It also means that it was greenlit in 2020. And when we think about the timeline of things, I don't know. At that time, it seems like maybe Herman Holst was aware of Concord, aware of Firewalk, but then again, we I do have to consider the fact that based off of what we know about Concord's development, it happened. If we look at the timeline, 2020, the game was in a very, very, very early, like almost non-existent state. So, with that being said, it is quite possible that the other side of the coin here may be the truth, and that they're just completely separate from one another, and it just so happens that they kind of share some similarities. Now, I did see some people saying that, you know, the game Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet is, and actually Naughty Dog did confirm this, it's inspired by like Akira and Cowboy Bebop. It's got this retro futurism going on, and people are, I think, confusing that with, and I'll admit, I think I'm confusing it a little bit too, where it's like, oh no, it's Guardians of the Galaxy, it's Concord, and in reality, and to be fair, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Concord both have kind of retro futurism, somewhat, not necessarily as prevalent as what we see in something like Cowboy Bebop or Akira. But have I changed my opinion on Intergalactic? I don't know that I've changed my opinion as much as I'm just not extremely exhausted and frankly a little bit irritable, 7.5 hours into a stream. Uh, I'll talk about that in a moment. I wouldn't say my opinion has changed. Rather, I just feel, I don't know, I feel more level headed right now, you know? I feel well rested. No, I did not see that, Rufus. Venino with a $2 super chat says Astro won because nostalgia, BMW/metaphor are better. I don't think Astrobot won because of nostalgia. I don't agree with that, Venino. I don't. I think Astrobot won because it's a very good game. I think that if you remove the PlayStation nostalgia, it still would have won Game of the Year or could have won Game of the Year. Now, I'm not saying that Black Myth Wukong or Metaphor aren't also great games. I think they are. But I don't think if like Metaphor won or if Black Myth Wukong won, I don't think I would say no, Astrobot should have won because Astrobot was better. I just kind of feel like they all had a lot going for them. I do think that. I think all of the games had a lot going for them. And it was kind of like, whoever wins, wins, man. And I think they're deserving of it. But as somebody who did play Astro, I platinumed Astro, I played all the DLC for Astro. I do disagree in that I think Astro is just as worthy for Game of the Year as any other game up there. But I mean, with things like Game of the Year, everybody's going to have different feelings on it. No doubt about that. Everybody's going to have their own opinion and their own different feelings. And I think that's fine. I just don't think it's healthy and I'm not saying anybody is doing this right now, but when you are having conversations across the internet about Game of the Year, in some places it can get very toxic very quickly. And I don't think that's necessary. Lore Cannon with a $2 super chat says Naughty Dog's game is going to be more like Jedi Survivor. I actually do agree with that to an extent because I did see some people trying to compare it to Star Wars Outlaws, but I am thinking it's going to be more like Jedi Survivor, like if we're going to compare them. Saying your chat was toxic yesterday. That happens every stream I do where we stream an event. I don't know if you noticed that. I try my best to keep it under control, but it's very difficult to do so because it's like I can't ban everybody, I can't mute everybody. Um, and to be honest, it's also very hard for me to even pay as much attention to to the chat when I'm trying to watch the stuff that's on screen. But I did see some of it, and freedom of speech, I mean, dude, I I'm not trying to like censor people if it's just not necessary. I do think that some people get a little bit overreactionary and some people get a little bit too upset over things that are not worth getting that upset over. But it what I noticed is it's exhausting, dude. That's the thing that gets me. It's exhausting. Where it's like for example, when I was talking about, yeah, I agree with that, Lone Wolf Gamer. You're saying MEG, everyone's going to have different opinions. You can't stop that. Some are just worse than others. And that's the thing. I'm trying not to dissuade people from having an opinion and expressing their opinion. I want people to be able to express their opinions on my channel and in the chat. It just it seems to me something that's becoming clear, at least with PlayStation and conversations surrounding PlayStation, but maybe gaming as a whole these days, is that it's becoming more and more difficult for people to just have conversations because it's becoming more and more like, which side are you on? Are you the side that believes Western game development is full woke, or are you the side that is pro woke? And it's like, I think it's more complex than that. And I think we have to look at things a little bit deeper. I think we have to stop approaching everything from a surface level. And this is why, like, I will be honest, guys, like, I completely tune out when we see something like Intergalactic, I'm just going to call it Intergalactic. I'm going to be honest. I don't like saying the whole title over and over again. When I see something like Intergalactic, when I see people saying, "Man, it's another female or it's a bald female or whatever," like I'm not interested in those opinions because and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with deciding you don't want to play a game because it features a female or a strong female lead or a bald female lead, whatever. I don't have a problem with a person that has that opinion. I'm just saying I simply do not give a shit about that opinion because that is so surface level that it's not relevant to what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is what is the depth of this game beyond the protagonist's sex or appearance. That's what I'm interested in. I understand that for some people, they're like, hey, I'm noticing a pattern of there's more female leads seemingly in more Sony games. And yes, you are not wrong for noticing that pattern. But what does that mean? I need to know what that means because I see people say this and they fail to explain what that means. And what they will do is they will just say, well, it's because woke. And I'm like, yeah, but what are you saying? What does that mean? Because it really does start to feel like it turns into, it means you shouldn't play the game because it's a female. And if it goes deeper than that, an explanation can go a long way. But I don't see enough people explaining. I see people making statements and walking away. I see people repeating the same statements and failing to elaborate further. And I see people getting very annoyed by this, which just makes the problem worse. I'm interested when it comes to a game like Intergalactic in knowing when Naughty Dog says this is going to be the deepest gameplay experience we've ever created, what does that look like? That's what I'm interested in. I'm not necessarily too interested in the first trailer because the first trailer is not doing much for me. I think it's different. I do think it's very interesting that Naughty Dog is going in such a different direction from Uncharted, from The Last of Us. But they really didn't show it. They showed like a very small, like 3-second snippet of gameplay. And that's the part that honestly interested me. I don't care what this woman looks like. I wouldn't, just like I said with Stellar Blade. Hey, yeah, they decided to sexualize this character and make her extremely sexy. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. You want to make some eye candy? Go ahead. I also don't have a problem if they want to make just, a regular, a relatively athletic, lean looking female with a shaved head. I do not care. What I care about is this character going to be interesting? Is this character going to have depth? Is this character going to be one that I'm interested in learning about their story and their character? Or is it going to be a poorly written character that feels like I'm not really I'm not I'm not vibing with this character. I'm not feeling it and I'm just not really too interested in their story. That's what I want to know. And to be frank, the first trailer we saw, it didn't really tell me much. It gave me the overall feel of what Naughty Dog is going for with this retro futurism. And I think if I had to pin it down, I think the first trailer for Intergalactic, the point of it is for Naughty Dog to convey how different this game is going to be from their previous games in recent years. Outside of that, I don't think there's much else we can gather from it. I mean, we know that this character is a bounty hunter. We know that she's going to a planet that nobody's ever returned from. We know that she's hunting somebody down. We know that there was a group of characters that she, I guess, was close to, and we're going to learn about them. And that can be great if it's written and done well. And if the gameplay they show is amazing, well, at the end of the day, I don't know about you guys, but I play video games for, you know, for gameplay. Like that's why I play video games. I watch movies for story. Now, I do care about storytelling in games. I do. I care about storytelling in games, but I play games for gameplay. And the proof is in the pudding for me personally, where I did not like the story of The Last of Us Part 2, yet I have the platinum. Do you know why that is? Because I love the gameplay of Last of Us Part 2. Don't love the story, really don't actually like the story. Love the gameplay. And you know what that's a perfect example of? Two things can be true at the same time. And unfortunately, in the year 2024, for most people on the internet, that is not a possibility for them. Two things cannot exist at the same time. I don't know why. It's really not that complicated. Two things can absolutely exist, be true and exist at the same time. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, Oliver, if that's what it turns out to be, that's going to be pretty cringe, pretty weak. It could be that. But if that's what it turns out to be, that's like, holy crap. What happened? But I don't know if it's going to be that. Um, RJ, you're saying watched the stream yesterday and was confused by the comparisons to Guardians and Concord. Intergalactic is so clearly Akira and Cowboy Bebop inspired. People need to watch more than Disney stuff. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's where I jumped the gun a bit too much. And I did admit that I think I have Concord. It's still fresh in my mind. So when I'm watching this, I'm like, that's the first thing that's coming to my mind. But yeah, it does seem that that is more of what they're going for. I did like Cowboy Bebop quite a bit. Um, and it is giving that feel. Wokeness, the game presented by Naughty Dog. I don't. I didn't get that vibe from the trailer. You know what? Hold on though. I want to look something up because I feel like there was a leak earlier this year about the premise of Naughty Dog's next game. And I think some people were like actually convinced that that's what the game was going to be. And now that we know what the game is they're actually doing, I'm curious to see if there's any truth to that. Phil for real with the $2 super chat says woke means black atheism, not race inclusion. Gavin Hillock, a member for 19 months, says, I have a hypothesis. Games that are trying to push a message are more likely to have a female PC, so some people just see it as a big red flag now. Figuratively literal, saying trailer gave me space horror vibes and reminded me of Alien with Ripley. Apparently, Neil met with the director of Alien and Romulus, which is interesting. I did see multiple people saying this. Multiple people are saying that it's giving them Alien vibes. I'm not getting that as much. I am a little bit. But listen, the part of this trailer, because I went back and rewatched it a couple more times. The part of this trailer that made me go, okay, I want to see more. This is the part I'm interested in, was when they first showed the planet, like on like the actual, not a zoom out of the planet, but being on the planet, and it looked kind of dark and creepy. And then they just show that robot. And obviously they show the character running up with this laser blade sword or whatever. That's when I'm like, you know what? I want to see more, because this is so different from what I would have expected from Naughty Dog, but it could be amazing if the gameplay has the type of depth that they're teasing. This could be very interesting from a gameplay perspective. I'm interested in knowing more about the story, of course, but I'll be honest, I think this might be like a situation where Naughty Dog, with their first trailer, actually has me more interested in, I want to know more about the gameplay than I do about the story, which for a studio like Naughty Dog, considering how prolific they are known to be in storytelling, that to me is very interesting. I wouldn't have expected that. I would have expected it to be more of, I'm hooked by the story, hooked by the premise, more than the gameplay pull. Not that the gameplay wouldn't be important. The gameplay would be incredibly important. Obviously, I play games for gameplay, but this is actually where it's the other way around now, where it's like, okay, um, The Last of Us Part 2 drew me in mostly for its story based off of the build up to its release. I stayed for the gameplay, right? I stayed for the gameplay. This time around, this game, if it does draw me in, it's likely going to do so because of the gameplay more so than the story. And that, I don't think, that is not something I would have predicted from Naughty Dog. I would have predicted, once again, it's the story that's going to draw me in, and then I'm going to stay for the gameplay. But this time around, it might be the gameplay that draws me in more so than the story. And I'm going to stay for the gameplay as well, you know? Why is the trailer holding a 50% dislike rating on YouTube? I'd say because 50% of the people who watched it didn't like it. And I'm not shocked. I don't think this was the strongest first impression. I think it could have been stronger, but I don't think it was bad either. I'm very much in a, I want to hear more. I want to see more. But it's a 4-minute first trailer, and it only showed about 3 seconds of gameplay. So we're going to see. We have figuratively literal with a super chat. He says the trip, or sorry, I read that already. My bad. Chris, you're saying it looked cool to you. I now know you guys will never be satisfied. People asking about my stream from yesterday. It's currently not viewable. It's blocked in multiple regions. And in order to make it viewable, I have to see if I can um, remove like chunks of the stream. It's a 7.5 hour stream, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, but I will have to see if I can remove this stuff and make it visible again. That's why I wanted to do this stream today, to basically have a extended conversation about it. Because by the time the Game Awards wrapped up last night, it was like 12:30 at night, and I was tired. PS Gamer, you're saying you have some direct donations. Let me go check them out. PS Gamer, you're saying it's been too long, MBG. The last 2 months been too crazy for me and wasn't able to catch any live streams. Hopefully from now I can catch the stream. This is the first time I'm not excited for the Naughty Dog game due to character issues. I like the idea of spaceships, melee focus, bikes, and open world plus. And that's fair, you know? Again, man, like this game, like I said earlier, this Naughty Dog game is polarizing, seemingly polarizing. And I just wish people would calm down. I do. I do. I wish people would be willing, and I'm not pointing out anybody in particular. I just wish in general people were more willing to be like, yeah, I'm not very interested in it. I don't think it looks very good. Oh, okay. Well, I guess just, don't play it. But I also wish that the people who do think, it looks really good, I wish more people would just be like, yeah, I think this looks interesting. And to be fair, I have been seeing that. But it's just the same old song and dance, man, where the loudest people seemingly do get the most attention, where people are already going on a crusade, and it's like, why? Like, I mean, I really need to know what in that trailer sparks somebody to go on a crusade. If it sparks you to say, I don't think this looks good, I'm probably going to pass on it, I understand that. If it sparks you to say, I think this does look good, I'm actually excited to see more, I understand that. What I don't understand is how a trailer like that can spark somebody to either A, say, I need to basically let everybody know that this is a clown show and this is just the worst thing we could have ever gotten, or B, it sparks somebody to go on a crusade to basically fight anybody who's saying that, where it's like, stop talking about Naughty Dog that way. They're the goats and everything they touch turns to gold. Neither of those things are productive to the conversation, and they never will be productive to the conversation. We have Luis Angel Picardo, or Luis, I think is how I'm supposed to say it. He says, I don't like the amount of female leads we have been getting, due to the fact that it takes me out of the RPG aspect of the game. I'm pro woke, however. I want to play as a male, not as females. Interesting. Pro woke. I think that's a fair assessment. I don't think there's anything wrong with what you're saying, Luis. I think you're just being honest in that when you play, you're saying specifically RPG games. When you play RPG games as a male, you are a male. You feel a deeper connection. I think that's completely natural and normal. Just like if a female plays as a female character, they tend to feel like they have a greater connection because of that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think my only thing I say to that, the only thing I say to people who feel that way is just think about it just a little bit more, And if you do, and that's the conclusion you come to, I think that's fine. But I think sometimes we have to maybe, again, dig a little bit deeper and ask ourselves, why do we play video games? And what is it that we are trying to get out of video games. And I guess if you're talking about an RPG where it is a role-playing video game, I completely understand where it's like, well, I want to feel like I'm playing the role, you know? I wanna feel like like it's relatable to me, and there has to be that tether and that connection. But at the same time, I really do strongly feel that I am not ever going to compromise my potential enjoyment of a well-crafted video game experience because I don't feel 100% like this is speaking literally directly to me down to my core. I don't need that to be a requirement for every video game in order to enjoy it. Now, I will also say if it gets to a point where no video games like that exist, I will start to feel a little bit differently, where there are no video games that feel like they're speaking directly to me, to my core, and I feel like I'm like I'm just completely straight line tethered to it, you know? If that ceases to exist in its entirety, I'm likely to start to feel like I'm disconnecting a bit from games these days. Luckily, I haven't really felt that way, at least not that often, you know? Like, I'll give you a prime example. In 2022, I played Horizon Forbidden West and I played God of War Ragnarok. This is the best example I could give to where when I played Horizon Forbidden West, I did not feel like I connected on really any level with Aloy as a character. And I was mostly indifferent to her character. I didn't have a problem with her. I didn't dislike her, but I also didn't really feel anything for her either. She just felt kind of like the vessel I was playing through to experience the world and fight the machines and just kind of see what ends up happening. To whereas when I played God of War Ragnarok, I felt the opposite. I felt very connected to Kratos and Atreus, and the reason for that is because I am a father, you know, and I have a son, and I just felt like there were many, many story beats and moments in that game where I felt like there was that direct line of connection that I felt like this is speaking to me on a very core level. To whereas I did not feel that at all with Horizon. However, with that being said, at the end of the day, I ended up enjoying both Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok and look back at them as great video games that I enjoyed. Now, obviously, I enjoyed Ragnarok more. I appreciated yeah, and Kratos is also bald, his hair limitation or situation, yeah. So there's that. But I did enjoy Ragnarok more because of the reasons I listed on top of the amazing gameplay. There was just a greater connection and it enhanced the experience for me. But I will, you know, I would be lying if I said I disliked Horizon Forbidden West because of Aloy or because I didn't really connect with the characters in that universe as much or the story being told. That's not true. So this is where I feel like people, again, it's worth trying to have a deeper conversation and like, listen, you don't have to love everything that's being offered here. You don't have to feel totally 100% tethered to and connected to everything that's being offered here. But there's a pretty high chance, I would say, that there's going to be some stuff you may really like here. You don't have to love it all, you know? But if it turns out that you don't love any of it, that's fine too. And I just feel like people are not willing to have these types of conversations. And it does become more like, man, why didn't they make the game that I wanted them to make? I just feel like that's not, I mean, I understand where like deep down where that comes from, where it's like, yeah, we want more experiences that feel like they speak directly to us, you know, that we feel like we can jump on board with and we're ready for. And it's always disappointing when it comes from a studio or a creator that you're like, man, I liked the previous thing you did, but I'm not sure about this. I get that. I think we've all experienced that. For example, when I think of Naughty Dog, let's imagine that the reveal that happened yesterday was Last of Us related. And let's say it was a new Last of Us game set in the Last of Us universe, and it is a prequel starring Joel. And that's something that people have been asking Naughty Dog for a couple of years. And apparently they were working on it, but it just didn't come together, which is super interesting to think. Where it's a prequel set with younger Joel and younger Tommy, and they're trying to survive together. I would be way more excited and enthusiastic about that than what I'm seeing now with Intergalactic. And I think it's very obvious why that is. It's not because, oh man, um, it's another Last of Us. No, it's because my favorite game from Naughty Dog is The Last of Us 1, and it is because of the connection that I have with Joel and with Ellie and their story together and their journey. And seeing and learning more about Joel and feeling very relate or I feel like I can relate to Joel. That definitely went a long way for me with such in-depth storytelling, with such intense emotion on display, with awesome gameplay. And I would very much I would be much more receptive to, hey, what if we told another story with Joel, something that we never showed you before, something new? I would be all over that because it's like, yes, I would love every aspect of that automatically. I love the post-apocalyptic world of The Last of Us. I love the gameplay of The Last of Us. Joel's one of my favorite characters. I love the idea of getting more history, seeing more of Joel's history after the outbreak. I like Tommy as a character. I like the dynamic between those characters. I would be all for that. And that would be a like that would qualify as one of these games where every single every single thing that I'm seeing of this game, I am hyped for. To whereas with Intergalactic, I'm not hyped for every single thing I'm seeing of this game. I'm potentially excited about some of what I'm seeing with this game. And the other stuff I'm seeing, it's not making me like I don't have this reaction that other people are having where it's like, ew, what am I even looking at? It's not that. It doesn't it's not evoking that feeling out of me. It's evoking a feeling of I see what they're going for. I don't know that I'm going to feel that connection. I don't know that that raw interest is going to be there. And that is ultimately a little bit disappointing to me, only because Naughty Dog has provided that to me before. And I think that's the trick here. Naughty Dog provided a game that really spoke to me on a deeper level, something that I really resonated with deeply. And then it turns out that, well, we're moving on to something new, and there's no guarantee that it's going to do that this time around. And I think honestly, what we're seeing across the industry, and I will read these super chats. I just want to make sure I get my thoughts out here as concisely as I can. I think what we're beginning to see across the industry are a lot of reactions from people who they have had these experiences that speak to them on a deeper level, that they connect with on a deeper level. And because of that, there's an emotion attached to it. There's a deep, raw emotion attached to it. And I think when we see those things either start to fade away in favor of other things that we don't have that connection to, or it's not speaking to us on that deeper level, I think it causes an emotional reaction because you're seeing something. It tends to feel for, and I'm not saying it's fair for the creators necessarily, but it tends to mimic feelings of something's being taken from you. And I think that's why we're seeing such a visceral reaction to so many things, not just Intergalactic from Naughty Dog, but you see The Witcher 4, you see some of the reactions that people are having there, but just across the industry. And I get it. I do. But I'm just not on that wavelength of I'm not there yet. And I don't know if I will get there, but I'm actually okay. I am okay with if a studio wants to make a game that isn't going to resonate with me 100% of the time, and I'm not going to have that deeper connection the entire time I'm playing, but it can still offer me a really great gameplay experience and something enjoyable and something fun, something intense, I'm okay with that. I just don't want it to ever be that that's what it turns into 100% of the time. If that's what it turns into 100% of the time, at that point I might start to feel like I'm beginning to disconnect to a certain extent from gaming, or I'm just not getting that deeper feeling, that deeper layer that I do kind of yearn for in a lot of the games I play. So hopefully that explains it, at least for me. All right, let me catch up with some of these super chats. Zombie Dragon, you're saying this does give off some woke vibes, but I see this more as a wait and see. But the world does look interesting, a lot more than the actual character. I agree with that. The world and the type of lure potentially that Naughty Dog is building here is fascinating to me. Not at all what I expected, but that it, that is maybe kind of what makes it so fascinating. Where it's like this is not grounded in reality. This is, I believe they actually said this is an alternate universe where by the 1980s we progressed like space travel tremendously, and I'm like, okay, that that's very interesting. Not any That's not something I would have ever predicted from Naughty Dog. And like I said, when they showed the planet and the robot machine or whatever, I'm like, hmm, I would like to see more of this, please. We have two super chats from Subtext. He says, at the 1748 mark of Grounded 2, the Last of Us 2 documentary, they talked about and showed a melee focused, Bloodborne inspired combat system they worked on for The Last of Us 2, but they pulled back on it. This trailer reminded me of that system since it ended with Melee, and I assume they're bringing that back. Might be worth watching that. I know exactly what you're talking about, Subtext, and this is why when Naughty Dog says we are working on the deepest gameplay experience that we've ever created, you combine that with the fact that, like you're saying, they did show, or they did tease, I should say, some melee focused combat where, she's like bouncing off of a big boulder and about to slice this thing in half. Um, you look at the Grounded documentary, they were inspired by Bloodborne. They did want to go melee only. I am very intrigued. I'm very interested in seeing what Naughty Dog's deepest combat system that is potentially melee only ends up looking like, because that they could end up overselling it where it's like, this isn't nearly as deep as you guys made it sound, or they actually are serious and they're like, no, we want people who play this game, the number one thing we want them to talk about is how amazing the melee combat is. How how in depth all these systems are when it comes to the combat. That would be I would be surprised, truthfully, if Naughty Dog pulls that off, because I just don't feel like that's what people I don't feel like that's a buzzword, not a buzzword. That's the wrong term to use, but that's not like that's not the first thing that comes to mind. Simply put, I think when people think about Naughty Dog, I think people do think about very good, solid gameplay, but they don't think about they're not thinking about Naughty Dog's gameplay mechanics on the same level as, like, say, something like Elden Ring, where it just doesn't have that level of depth. And if this game were to offer that, I'm very fascinated by that. I actually really like that notion. And that's why I'm not going to sit here and make it sound like I'm not willing to see what Naughty Dog wants to show me. I'm absolutely ready and willing to see what they want to show me. I just don't know when they're going to. Could be a long time. So thank you for that subtext. We also have Drive By Joe with a $2 super chat, and he says, as long as I got a sick ass mask, I'm good. Well, I mean, something that people were talking about in this is they're like, well, we're not going to have a character creator because they made it clear like this is a new protagonist, a new main character. I forget the name. Is the name Jordan? I think. Um, but that's not to say that there won't be customization. The last thing we heard rumor wise about this new Naughty Dog game is that apparently it's going to offer an incredible amount of gameplay freedom and just player freedom. And that very well could extend into customization. Maybe she can have hair. Maybe she can have hair. You know? Who are we to say? We don't know yet. Do I think it's open world? I think it might be. I think it might be. Yeah. I mean, they're teasing a whole planet, you know? So it's like, it could be open world. Chris, MBG, where are your mods stopping this BS in your chat with the trolling and woke nonsense they keep spamming? Well, I did see that Whiskey Gaming was preventing some spam there. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, if Whiskey Gaming, I trust him. He's a good mod. Here come the people demanding censorship again. I mean, I will say, if there's one thing I don't like seeing in my chat are people making it seem like I'm upset at what this person said, so they shouldn't be allowed to say what they're saying. And I read what they say, and it's like, there's nothing wrong with what they said. You're it's okay to be upset at what somebody says, but I'm not going to do this thing where it's like, listen, you can only talk one way. And yeah, and that's the thing, Whiskey Gaming. I'm actually curious to see saying he was spamming. I mean, this is yeah, we can't I don't want to see the spamming shit. Cuz you're right, Whiskey Gaming, you did your job correctly. Like he's allowed to say that, but you're not allowed to just type that over and over again in the chat. That's very annoying. So if you know, there's a difference between censorship and just being annoying. I don't We're not trying to spam the chat. It's become a weaponized attack on other people's favorite games. Let me see here. Still catching up with these super chats. We have uh, Horrid Rick saying, "Do you think Neil will focus on Souls-like combat?" I think there's a chance he might. I think Naughty Dog might be focusing on some Souls-like combat because, again, if you watch that Grounded documentary, Grounded 2 is the making of The Last of Us Part 2, they talk very much about how inspired they were about Bloodborne. And then later on, after Elden Ring came out, Neil Druckmann spoke, I think, a few times about how he was inspired by Elden Ring. And that was a game that was inspiring him at the time. So I think there's a real chance. There's a real chance. You think it might have quelled a lot of hate if they at least showed us some gameplay? I can agree with that. Yeah, I think if they were willing to show a little bit more gameplay, it would have maybe, like you said, kind of calmed down the. It wouldn't have been as polarizing. I think it was going to be polarizing no matter what. But oh my God, why my YouTube studio crashed again? Why does it keep doing that? I just don't understand. Let me see. We have figuratively literal. says, not surprised by the reaction given Yote's reception and Neil directing. I think the reaction would have been far more positive if the main character was male. Yeah, I mean, there's no denying, based off of what we're seeing, that a certain group of people, like, I'll be honest with you right now, man. With some of the takes that I'm seeing, it is abundantly clear to me that it could have been a male, but if it was a black male, if it was a male that was gay, there would still be so many of these people extremely distraught and annoyed and bothered. And at the end of the day, what I'm seeing are it is a group of individuals that, simply put, they want straight white men. And I know that that's like, oh my God, you're woke. Like, no, I'm literally seeing, like, people are not hiding it anymore. And I'm not even here to even be judgmental about it, but it is what it is. Like, that's what a certain group of people are requesting. And it's like, I get it. If you are a straight white male and you want to play a video game with a straight white male lead, you're going to feel like you relate to that more. That's fine. But I just don't know that it's the best look when you see games from studios that are not doing that, to basically make that the main thing you're focused on. Because I just don't think that at the end of the day is what should determine whether a game is good or not. On a more interpersonal level, on a deeper level for some people, does it have an impact? I'm sure it does. But I just don't think that that's what should be the main focal point. And it would be fucking cringe. And I don't think people really think about it this way. It would be fucking cringe if Naughty Dog came out and was like, here's our straight white Giga Chad male because you guys asked for it. Like, do people not realize how cringe that would be? Like, just let it be what it's going to be. If this character ends up being some annoying ass Mary Sue character that is just like, wow, this person is insufferable, we will criticize that. That will have nothing to do with her gender, her skin color, or the fact that she's bald. It'll be because, wow, this character is really poorly written and nobody really likes this character. Just like if it was a Giga Chad male. If the character's poorly written, the character's poorly written. But we don't know yet. What is Kratos? I mean, dude, like, Kratos to me is, I will tell you, Kratos is one of my favorite characters because I do feel like, yeah, I feel like I can relate to Kratos on many levels that, I'll be honest, like, I don't know that Mrs. MBG could feel like she relates to Kratos on all of those same levels for obvious reasons. And that's okay. This is why I say, like, people need to be careful about the message they're trying to send to the gaming industry and to developers. Where, listen, sure, Titus, listen, these are two different messages that we need to separate. One message is we don't want things to only go one way. We don't want 95% of video games to be strong female leads or gay characters or lesbian characters or trans characters or straight characters. We don't want 95% of games to be straight white males. We don't need it to be any one way. There are so many studios, so many development teams, and so many creative minds, so many diverse people making games. We literally don't, there can be something for everybody at all times. And there's a difference between having a fear that maybe the scales are tipping way too much in favor of one thing or one side in particular. There's a difference between having that fear and basically just revealing that you have a problem with female leads or, characters with, that are gay or whatever, like there is a difference between that. And I feel like the biggest problem right now is there are groups of people who are trying to advocate for that balance, but they are being mixed in with groups of people that are absolutely not advocating for that balance and basically causing the chaos of like, listen, we know what some of these people want and it's not fair and it's not right. And some of these people, it's just like anything else. They're wolves in sheep's clothing where they wear the mask and they make it seem like their intentions are good and not ill. But once things escalate further, to a point, you start to realize like, wait a second, you're not, you're not, you're not advocating for the right thing. Is it like this is what you thought the whole time? And that to me is where it gets disappointing because at times like this, you see all of this get mixed together. And I think this is where we have to untangle the knots and we have to separate these things in order to identify what the actual potential real problem may be and how we can solve it or what a potential solution to it is versus there are just some not so great people out there, some bad actors, as many people call them, that frankly have very warped views of these things, and they should not be pandered to or even maybe listened to because they're like if they had it their way, it would only be one way. And to be clear, that also that mentality does exist all the way on the other extreme, like we've talked about many times. It just we need to untangle these knots and see things for what they really are. And only until we do that collectively will we be able to find that happy medium, that balance that I think is at this point in time very much necessary. Because the greatest thing about having a balance, the greatest thing about achieving this is literally everybody will be happy, or everybody should be happy, I should say. Exactly, Michael. Let's see here. We have a couple more super chats. We have Josh. You're saying, I think what gets me is, hold on. You're saying, I think what gets me is that the loudest people are bitching about female leads, acting like they shouldn't exist in games. I hate that. Sorry, you didn't say I hate. I read that wrong. You're saying that's why woke agenda exists because of those groups being hated for existing. You're correct. You're correct. And I think this is where the true agents of chaos, if you want to call them that, are winning. Because I'm seeing who's spamming the chat, Michael. Okay. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. If you catch my attention with spam, I'm not even giving you a chance. I'm just not. This is what I mean. Like, there you go. Perfect example. These people right here. This person's name is Stop Woke. They come into the chat and they spam free speech. What do you think? What do you think you're achieving, buddy? Do you think you're helping? No, you know you're not helping. You know exactly what you're doing. This person probably has multiple Twitter accounts, multiple social media accounts, probably comments on everything in this culture war, causing as much chaos as they possibly can. It's not about your fucking free speech, buddy. It's about the fact that you're annoying as shit and you're causing chaos in a chat where people are trying to have engaging conversations. Just an example, a prime example of just what exists all over the place on the internet in 2024. For all I know, that person isn't even real. That could have been a bot. You may have free speech, but you are not free to spam in my chat. Probably has 10 burner accounts ready to go. Yeah, probably. It's all right, Whiskey Gaming. You've been vigilant. But sometimes I got to step in, you know? Yeah, Gavin, let's go. But Josh, getting back to your super chat, yeah, I do think this is becoming a serious problem. If not serious, just a very, like I said, annoying problem. And I know that the thing is, people are like, you just have to ignore it. But if there's something that I think has become clear, is it is getting harder and harder and harder to actually ignore, because it seems like no matter what we are trying to engage with, it finds its way in. I was reading some of the replies on X yesterday to Neil Druckmann announcing this game. People are unhinged. Like, there are some normal, reasonable takes, but the amount of unhinged, like, just actually insane people, like people that I don't think I worry that people don't realize what they're saying. Like, do you understand how you sound? Would you ever speak to somebody like this to their face over a fucking video game? Get a grip. Get a grip. I see that on the other side too, but in this moment, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it to a degree where it's like, guys, not to pull out the Kratos quote, but we do need to be better. If we plan to improve things and not make them worse, it starts with actually trying to be better, not stooping to a level that's just like you either come off as a crazy person or a vile person. Who is that going to help? Nobody. It's unfortunate. Let me see here. We have a perfect image. You're saying we all know 2025 will be female leads in gaming, but the wife likes. Listen, dude, I am married to a woman, and she's very much into gaming. And if there's something that I have learned over the years, is I genuinely underestimated how much stuff like this does impact uh, people like my wife and many others. Where, like, I know I had to emphasize that part. I don't know why I had to put emphasis on that part. You guys already know this. But it's like, I see some games that are announced that do feature female leads, and I notice that, you know, it's speaking more directly to my wife, and she is a little bit more excited because of that. And she does talk to me about how growing up, it's not that there weren't female leads. There were, but there was no denying that there weren't as many. And we could say, yeah, sure, maybe that is because most of the audience were male. You know, most gamers in the earlier days, and, you know, when we look back at the older console generations, they mostly were guys, right? But as time has went on, there's no doubt that there are more women playing games. And I don't know that it's like more women than men. I don't think that's true. I'm not even sure what the data says about that. But I do know that there are more women playing now. And this is why I'm saying, like, I don't have a problem with this stuff, man. Like, if I see a game that doesn't make me jump for joy with excitement, but I turn and my wife is like, I think that looks pretty good. I'm like, that in extension makes me kind of happy. Where it's like, well, I'm like, I'm glad to see, that's cool. I'm glad you like it. May not be for me 100%, but I'm glad to see you like it. And I guess that's love, right? Like, I love my wife, and when my wife is happy, it makes me happy. And I feel like this is something that maybe isn't applicable to everybody, but then again, Mrs. MBG, she also sees Stellar Blade and she's like, that game looks cool. You know? She's not like, oh my God, I'm appalled. No. She's like, yeah, women have curves. There are a lot of women who are busty and have curves. There are a lot of women who don't. It's okay. Like, it's okay. I just think people need to chill, man. It's okay. Everything's going to be okay. As long as we don't let crazy people take over from either side. If we could stop that, I think everything's going to be okay. Oliver, that's an interesting solution. You're saying, I think every protagonist in games should have the option to choose what they identify so the problem would be solved. So basically, you're saying like a character creator. Can't be mad about jiggle physics. No, we cannot. You just feel like they're overdoing it. It's making you lose your love for video games. Well, that's what I mean. I am aware that we're seeing a bit of it's hard to determine right now because I think like the remainder of the generation we're really going to see the full picture. Now Joel can identify as a unicorn. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. An overcorrection potentially, very possible. It's very possible, and maybe likely in certain cases we're seeing that there is a bit of an overcorrection, and that is leading to an overreaction. Um, you know, action reaction. We know how this works. But I want to see if the people who I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of people getting caught up in this drama that are not bad people. I think that most people are just they want to enjoy great stories, great games. They want to feel that passion for these worlds, for these characters. And I think the people creating this stuff, most of them are not bad people with ill intent. I think that they want to create that. They want that to be a thing. And so I do want to see with these upcoming projects that people had, like Ghost of Yote, for example. Ghost of Yote is the one I'm most interested in right now because I was shocked. I will be honest with you. I was quite shocked at the reaction to Ghost of Yote. I kind of couldn't believe. I'm like, Jesus, I I feel disconnected from what a lot of what I'm seeing, and I don't quite understand it. But I know what people I know what the expectation is now, and that's where I'm like I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna wait and I'm gonna see Sucker Punch. Listen, there's a lot of people right now betting against you. Um, I'm not one of them, and I think they're wrong. I don't agree with what they're saying. I'm going to give you I'm going to give you all the chance in the world because you earned that, in my opinion. And I can't wait to see what you show me. I just really hope you don't let me down. You know, I hope you don't prove them right. I hope you prove them so wrong. That's what I'm rooting for. And I feel like people are not rooting for that. I feel like the people who are so worried about what's going on, they're not rooting for, but what if the game's actually great? What if all of your fears are not realized and actually it's just a great game through and through. Great story, great writing, great gameplay, great atmosphere, great world building. What if it is all those things? And that people, the people who are screeching the loudest right now, I don't think are even, that's not even a possibility in their minds. And that to me is the part where we're fucking, I think it like, that's where the fucked up part's coming in. Where it's like, we don't, listen, I'm not saying believe that. I'm not saying believe that. Because we've seen, again, with like a game like Concord, how that, it doesn't matter how much faith you have, it's just not going to work. I'm not saying believe it. I'm just saying consider it. I'm just saying consider it. Think about it. Wouldn't you like to be proven wrong? But I get the feeling that there are quite a few people with influence and with money on the line that if they were to have that approach, if they were to even consider it, to even present it as maybe we can be proven wrong. Wouldn't that be great? That if they do that, they're going to be met with very loud, vocal, abso-fucking-lutely not. We've already planted our flag. We've already made it clear where we stand. So that cannot even be considered. And there are people benefiting, profiting, and gaining off of that, frankly, radical mindset, because it is a radical mindset. And I definitely don't want to be part of that, because that's not, I am convinced that people who have that mindset, they're just, and I say this as somebody who at times I do question some of the things I see. I'm convinced that many of these people are frankly just very miserable. Sincerely, I think they're very unhappy. I think there's a lot going on deep down inside. And I think that they found a space on the internet where they realize I can just let this flow. And I'm surrounded by other like-minded people who have similar problems or turmoil, if you want to call it that. Yeah, it's misery loves company. And I think that's what it is. And it's I want to make it clear that is not exclusive to video games, as you know. But when we are looking at video games, when we are talking about video games, that's what I'm focused on, and I see it. And it makes me sad. It does. Saying who cares, let them be. I would love to. But the thing is, their reach, their vocality, if that's a word. Is vocality a word? Now I have to look it up. I'm sorry. Before I continue what I was going to say, I have to make sure vocality is a word. Vocality definition. The fact or quality of having a voice of a unique or particular character, a particular way of speaking or singing. Okay, that is a word, and I somehow used it completely correctly. That's kind of weird. I don't know how that's possible. I never used that word in my life. I never used that word in my life. I didn't even know that was a word, and yet I used it perfectly in a sentence. Is this proof of reincarnation and I lived a past life? Maybe one day I'll find out. Anyway, the vocality of it is becoming overwhelming. It's becoming overwhelming. And This is presented to me very openly, like last night when I'm streaming the Game Awards. And when I watched that trailer, I don't know how I looked, but the way I felt is I wasn't reacting. I was just watching and absorbing. There was no excitement in my face. There was no disappointment in my face. I was just watching. And I was processing. And honestly, I was actually just trying to make sure I was going to see who won Game of the Year before having any type of reaction. And I'm sorry to keep you guys with these super chats waiting. I just want to make this last point and I'll read the super chats. I appreciate your patience. I was just disappointed to see that the conversation immediately hit the bottom. You know what I mean? In so many places, and even in my chat to a degree. That's why so many people were calling my chat toxic, because the conversation, it seemed like it immediately delved. It just took a nosedive to, now we're going to argue about this, rather than conversing about what we just saw and analyzing it and dissecting it and being even just remotely nuanced about it. It's just people immediately like, boom. And that's I'm telling you, if I ever end up nuking my chat and becoming like, I mean, it's not that I don't moderate my chat, but if I ever get to a point where I'm like, I've had it, like I just can't be subjected to this anymore, it's going to be that does me in. It's going to be the fact that people are not willing to talk. They're willing to argue. They're willing to throw terms around. They're willing to just immediately jump to the conclusion, but they're not willing to talk. That's what's going to do me in, because I'm not seeing enough of that. And that's why I honestly wanted to have this conversation today, because my goal is to talk, to look at it from multiple angles, through multiple lenses, not just one, and to come to my own personal conclusion, but to also see some of you guys come to your conclusions as well. And these conclusions we come to don't have to be volatile. They don't have to be combative. They don't. We think they do, because honestly, if you want to take this further, we think they do because this all comes from the top down. This all trickles from the top. And what trickles from the top down is, so are you guys divided or what? Because the more divided you are, that helps us. And I'm not playing into that shit anymore. I'm not looking to be divided. I'm not looking to fight. I'm looking to have conversation, and I'm looking to observe and analyze and experience. Because you know what the truth is? If there's something that I come across that is like, you know what? I don't like this. I don't like what I'm seeing. I'm not in the middle. I'm not curious. I'm not waiting to see more. I just don't like it. Do you know what I do? I walk away from it and I ignore it because it's not relevant in my life. I don't make videos saying, hey guys, let me tell you how much I hate this thing so I can profit off of your hate. I have no interest in doing that. I am interested in having deeper, more meaningful conversations, but I'm not interested in planting a flag in one specific area and saying, hey, anybody who feels this way, please come over here and make sure you give me your money and attention so I can gain influence. I'm not interested in that. And I just recommend to anybody else out there that if you care about video games, if you care about the gaming medium, and if you just care at all about having conversations that are not as shallow as a puddle, you know, I recommend you take a similar approach. Money would be nice, though. Yeah, it would be. No argument there. I don't think anybody's going to be, against more money, but the way in which we are going about acquiring it, I think deserves a little bit of thought. Easy Tone. Again, thank you guys for waiting patiently. I'm sorry to keep you waiting for these super chats. You're saying also wasn't as excited for the trailer as I expected. I've wanted them to do sci-fi forever, but it reminded me of so many things, Cowboy Bebop, Returnal, Guardians, etc., that it didn't feel as original as I expected from Naughty Dog. I think that is a sentiment that multiple people have right now. And that is, I would say, the most reasonable reaction in terms of like, it's not that people are coming from any one particular place. They're just like, I'm not really, like you're saying, you're using the word, it doesn't feel as original. And I think that is going to be why I'm so interested in seeing the gameplay, because there is this kind of feeling like, and to be honest, Naughty Dog is wearing it on their sleeve. Garrett, you're saying, look at the end of the trailer with the sword and the robot. What does that look like? I mean, I have seen some people saying like it looks a little bit like Star Wars, which I understand. I mean, it makes sense where people are going to draw those comparisons. That's why I'm saying I'm telling you, Naughty Dog, I really hope you're going to show us this deep gameplay soon, because I think that has the potential to be the clincher for this game. I do. I think that right now people are not fully sold. Not everybody is sold on the presentation of this game for multiple reasons. As we stated, some more disingenuous than others, but nonetheless, not everybody is sold. I think the gameplay potentially could completely change the conversation around this game. But it's just one of those things where it's like, until we see it, that's just speculation. That's just a theory, right? No, I didn't even see that. You're saying a Black Myth Wukong PS5 Pro patch is releasing tomorrow? Really? I'll have to look into this when we wrap up this conversation. I did not know about this. This is the first I'm hearing of this. Oh, you said it at the start. I'm sorry. I completely missed that. My bad. Yeah, I don't catch every single chat. She has a gun too, so hopefully we can upgrade guns and swords. Did you see a gun? Did I miss that? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if she has a firearm. If it's not a mega hit, it will probably be a decent game. I will say, I did talk about this last night, and I want to reiterate this here. I do not, and again, this is where people are going to perceive this as hate towards the game. It's not hate. I'm just giving my honest evaluation, and it's early. It's very early. I can't predict the future, and I could be wrong. But I do not think this game is going to match the sales potential of Uncharted or The Last of Us. I think this game may actually do quite a bit less than both of those franchises. And I'm not saying that that'll be necessarily horrible for Naughty Dog or I mean I don't know what Sony's prediction are. This game, I will say this is the one thing that kind of I was thinking about. This game looks expensive, dude. Like, did anybody else kind of get that vibe where I'm like, oh, you got actual actors in this game, not like I don't, maybe Troy Baker will be in it, but not like Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker and Laura Bailey. Like, you got actors in it now, like actors who played in movies and TV shows. You got Trent Reznor. You got clearly like cutting edge graphical fidelity you're going for. It looks very, yeah, you got multiple brands in the game. That to me is something else. I thought, oh, that was probably expensive. I think there's a lot of money going into this game. And that's what's so interesting to me is like this very well could be Naughty Dog's most expensive game. And it's getting a bit of a polarizing reaction. To whereas Uncharted did not get a polarizing reaction. The Last of Us did not have any polarization until the sequel. but leading up to its launch, it still had a mass amount of hype, I would say. Um, Saying the brands probably pay Sony, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And so I do wonder if there's any like concern behind the scenes where it's like, oh man, the reaction to this wasn't as high up as we had hoped it would be. I also want to ask you guys about the viewership of the YouTube video before I read these supers. I don't know if this is a correct read or if it's an inaccurate. I know the composer is a big deal. Yeah, dude, I've never seen people go so crazy over a soundtrack before. When people saw it was Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, dude. I, I mean, I know Trent Reznor. I'm not too familiar with Atticus Ross. I think if I'm saying his name correctly. But I've never seen so much hype for a soundtrack in a game or like a composition. I'm like, whoa, this is a much bigger deal um, than I thought. But when it comes to the viewership of the trailer for Naughty Dog's new game, I don't know what the like to dislike ratio is. I've been seeing people say it's like 50-50. I'm focused on the views. The last time I checked, and this was a couple of hours ago, the video was a little bit over 560,000 views. So about 500,000 views. I saw that The Witcher 4 had 4 million views. And there's like a 2-hour gap between when these two trailers released. I feel like Naughty Dog's new game should have more views than it does. And I'm not, again, this isn't me trying to I'm not trying to poke holes in anything or try to bring it down. It's an evaluation, it's an analysis that it does seem to me like this isn't catching on yet. Maybe that could change, but this isn't catching on yet in the way that I would have expected it to, or it's not getting as many eyes on it. The Witcher is an established franchise. That is true. It does make me wonder if this was The Last of Us Part 3 or Uncharted 5, how much different it would be. It'd probably be very different, right? But I am a little worried. I'm a little bit worried that maybe there might not, I don't know, this game might not be as it might not be as anticipated as maybe it should be. And I'll be paying attention to that going forward. Illegal Monkey, you're saying Crash Bandicoot male lead, Jack and Daxter male lead, Uncharted male lead, The Last of Us 1 male lead, Intergalactic female lead. Heaven forbid they want to change it up a bit. It's interesting you point this out, Illegal Monkey, because that's a fact. I mean, The Last of Us Part 2 was the only other game. There's The Last of Us Part 2, and I guess it depends on who you ask if you count this as a game, but the expansion they released where you play as Nadine and Chloe, I think. So there are 3 products in total that feature female leads, 2 main games, including Intergalactic. What you are pointing out here, although I think I won't lie, I think it's a little bit funny that we're gonna throw Crash Bandicoot in there, like, but yeah, it is worth noting that Naughty Dog has many games that star a male lead. And that's where I just think like people are not thinking about that right now. And do you know why they're not thinking about that? They're not thinking about that because they're looking at other games from other studios that are more recent. They're looking at Returnal, female lead. Horizon, female lead. Ghost of Yotei will be a female lead. This is what they're looking at. And again, I do understand why that makes people think, this seems like it's becoming a bit skewed. But when we just isolate Naughty Dog themselves, it's not really skewed. If anything, it's kind of somewhat equally balanced here. That's the irony in all of this. If we just evaluate Naughty Dog, yeah, Crash Bandicoot, he's not a human, but he's a male. Jak and Daxter, male lead. Uncharted, 4 games with a male lead, 1 expansion with a female lead. The Last of Us 1, male lead. Well, I don't know. The Last of Us 1, I think we can say is both. Because I do count Joel and Ellie as like equal leads, you know? But yeah, for me, I would consider The Last of Us 1 more of a male lead because you play almost the entire game as Joel. Um, Last of Us Part 2, female leads, intergalactic female. So Naughty Dog literally has more games. And this is why I find this is important to inject into this conversation if people are going to be bringing this up. It's important to inject this into the conversation where it's like, well, let's look at Naughty Dog's history. How many games did they make that feature male leads versus how many games versus female? And the reality is it's pretty balanced. Now, let me ask you, does it benefit any of the people out there, like I said, who make money off of people's anger and frustration in this culture war? Does it benefit them to any degree to point out this fact? The answer is no, it does not. It does not help them. It does the opposite. It might make somebody step back and be like, wait, that's true. That's actually very true. I'm just saying. It doesn't mean we should ignore the other facts, such as there is an abundance of female leads being announced for new games in the year 2024. That fact should not be ignored. We should acknowledge that. And we should identify the potential problem of we don't want to see things get too skewed. But at the same time, we need to acknowledge Naughty Dog's history and evaluate them individually as a studio. We should at least give them that. When 80% of your audience is male, shouldn't it be expected that it be represented in the protagonist, though? I mean, not necessarily, but you would assume it would be skewed. You would assume the balance would match the ratio of male to female gamers. You would assume the balance would represent that. So, like, if you have 60% or 70% of gamers are male, and 40 to 35% are female, you would expect that when you zoom out bigger picture, that's basically what it's going to look like in terms of male to female leads. Could be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but it definitely doesn't make sense for, if more of your audience is male, it doesn't make sense to make 90% or 80% of your leads female. That just simply, it's fine to, have female leads. It doesn't make sense to go full tilt. Just like if 75% of gamers were female and 25% were male, it wouldn't make sense to make 80 to 85% male leads. It just literally doesn't make business sense. That's not even, I mean, we're not even talking, that's not culture warring. That's just, we're talking business. Who are you trying to appeal to? Who are you trying to speak to and connect to on a deeper level with your games? That's all. You're saying that's why I say it's an agenda being pushed, bro? I mean, there's no denying, like, okay, if we look at Naughty Dog's games, they have a balanced male to female ratio, I think, if we look at the history of all their games as a studio. But when we compare that to what we're seeing from PlayStation Studios right now, I think there is an imbalance. I think that there is maybe an overabundance of female leads, and I don't think that's sexist to say. I just think that's a fact. where, you know, it's gotten to a point where, I mean, people are wondering like, so, you know, so is Kratos going to be replaced with a female at some point in the near future? You know, is you know, I mean that it's gotten to that point where people are starting to wonder, like, is PlayStation Studios, or have they already, are they planning to, or have they already gone full tilt? I think that would be very stupid. So, BG, you're saying you'd rather stare at a male butt? No, no, because I don't. When I play video games, I'm not focused on staring at a character's ass or their reproductive assets. I'm not worried about that. Um, I'm just not. For example, when I play Stellar Blade, sure, she's eye candy. Do you want to know how much I was sitting there staring at Eve's ass or her breasts when I'm beating the shit out of enemies with visceral combat? Not much, at almost at all. Even when I put her in the more skimpy outfits, it became clear to me, like, man, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but this isn't like only 20% of the time. I mean, honestly, probably even less than that. Saying the energy is weird today. I don't think the energy is weird. I just think we're tackling things that people are trying to bring to the forefront of the conversation. Like, listen, if your main reason for, I know you're joking, B Flesher, I know, but the truth is there are many people out there who are not. That's the truth. And that's why it's like, listen, if your focus is on sexy females, very sexy females, I think those games are out there. Like, they're obviously out there. Why not just go play those? Like, there are this is what I mean. Like, there are developers and there are studios and there are games that are like, you want this? We'll make it for you. Yeah. Hell yeah, we'll make that for you. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, people behave as if these games don't exist, as if there aren't options. And that to me is also disingenuous. Now, listen, the conversation's a little bit different here because we are focused on PlayStation. And I will admit, I mean, it's ironic because Stellar Blade is a PS5 exclusive right now. That is the greatest fucking irony. Final Fantasy Rebirth, you know, featuring Tifa in her skimpy outfits, whatever. Like, these are PlayStation 5 exclusives right now that will go to PC, but isn't that so ironic? But that's where, again, the conversation requires a deeper analysis where what are we really talking about? We are talking about internal PlayStation studios. We are talking about Naughty Dog. We're talking about Sony Santa Monica. We're talking about Housemarque. We're talking about Blue Point. We're talking about all these studios because it does seem like there is a tether or a pattern, not a tether, but a pattern that is making itself known between these studios where it is, yeah, we are leaning much more so into female leads. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It will only become a bad thing if, again, it goes full tilt. And right now it seems like we're definitely at that point where it's like, is this thing about to tip over? But I do think people are ignoring certain things. It's like Spider-Man features 2 male leads. I mean, yeah, you play a couple missions as MJ, but I'm not, I'm not going to count her. So, like, do we really count her about the lead or count her as the lead? No. Spider-Man, God of War, you do play as Kratos. In Ratchet and Clank, I mean, yes, they did introduce Rivet, but you still play, I think, about either half or more than half of that game as Ratchet. Wolverine's coming up. Wolverine, I mean, Wolverine, I'm super excited for, you know? And I just think that it's like, sure, we could point out the fact that Returnal's main is a lead. The Last of Us Part 2, female lead. Ghost of Yotei, female lead. Galactic, female lead, sure. But that doesn't mean we don't also have male leads. Like, we are, I guess what I'm trying to say is people are behaving as if we've reached that point, and we have not. It doesn't mean we can't or won't, but we have not. And we should reserve behaving that way. We shouldn't behave as if something has happened that has not yet happened. I think people need to calm down a little bit. Seriously. Yeah, exactly. Uncharted was 4 games with Nathan Drake. 4 full games with Nathan Drake. And even though I wasn't too thrilled about what they did with Joel in The Last of Us Part 2, I can't sit here and pretend they didn't feature him prominently. They did. Joel was featured prominently in the game. I didn't like the way they handled his character arc and the way they told that story, but he was there. It's not like they literally were like, and he got golf clubbed and was never seen again. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't do that. And I think some people behave as if they did do that, and they definitely didn't. Um, but yeah, like, are there certain people in the industry that feel like they want to, like, we need to have more empowered female leads, that feel like they can go toe to toe with the male? Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely what's happening. And that doesn't have to be a problem unless it's handled poorly, unless it's handled clumsily. And that's what I'm basically boiling it down to. This character from Ghost of Yote, putting the main lead actress's political beliefs aside, because I don't care about that. I care about her performance in the game. I care about how the character's written. She could be an awesome character that stands right up there alongside Jin. Or she could be an atrocious character that is handled very poorly. That's where I am. And if you were to ask me, what do you think is more likely? What is the more likely outcome? My opinion on that is I think the character will be handled well. That's my opinion. And that's based off of Sucker Punch's history. So the one thing that makes me a little bit nervous about Intergalactic, truthfully, is that I did not enjoy Abby's character. I just didn't. I understand what Naughty Dog was trying to achieve with her character. It didn't land for me. I don't hate her character. I'm not like, oh my God, she's the worst fucking. It's not that dramatic, but I just did not like her character. I didn't. I feel like Naughty Dog wrote excellent characters with Joel and Ellie and Tess and Bill, and then you just kind of have Abby. And I think Abby, unfortunately, given what Naughty Dog, the role she was playing in that story, I don't think Naughty Dog could ever make me like Abby. And I'm not even blaming Abby the character. It's like, I just think the position you put her in, this character, and the way you were going to write her and the story you're trying to tell, the performance was great. Yeah, Laura Bailey killed it. But it's just like, I don't think you would ever get me to like this character. Like, there's just no world in which that happens. I don't like this character, and I can't wait to just be moved on from it. Definitely not like a Metal Gear Solid 2 Raiden situation where at first you're like, who the fuck is this? But then by the end, you're like, you know what? He ain't half bad. Raiden, you're okay in my book, bro. And then by Metal Gear Solid 4, he's actually awesome and badass. This was not that situation. And maybe it was never supposed to be that. But that's what has me a little bit more nervous about, Naughty Dog did write a character that I really disliked and I was supposed to feel somewhat connected to. Abby is not Jordan. You're correct. I'm going to let this character breathe and be their own character. And I'm assuming there's no way they're going to write Abby 2.0 for this character, because that would not make any sense. That would make no sense whatsoever. 18 May, you're saying first games reveal from Fumito Ueda since 2009. What a sneaky bomb. Game will 100% be on the PlayStation 6. I will say, I think you're right. I think that is going to be a PlayStation 6 game, because I got the sense when we were watching that trailer that it's very early in development. If not early in development, it's just nowhere near being completed. So Chris, you're saying Abby isn't even a bad character. I didn't say she was a bad character. I said that I don't like her. I don't like her character. That doesn't mean she's bad. She's not evil. I don't even think, listen, I would even take it as far as I don't even think Abby was that poorly written. It could have been, she could have been written way worse. Oh, okay, Chris, I'm sorry. I'm just saying that like her character in the story, it's just like the one question I would, if I could like have a conversation with Neil Druckmann about like the writing of The Last of Us Part 2, one of the things I would ask him is, did you, was your intent to get people to like Abby? And I think if I had to guess, his answer probably would be something like, not necessarily to like Abby, but to sympathize and empathize with her and to understand where she's coming from. And I'm like, I do like that. I think was successful in that I do understand that character's motivations, why she is the way she is, why she's doing what she's doing. But I still don't like her. you know, like I still will never get, and I guess maybe that was the point, but never forget what Neil Druckmann said. This was his words, not mine. We don't use the word fun when we talk about The Last of Us Part 2. Truer words were never spoken. I mean, it's just like, damn. He knew. All right. I still have some super chats. I'm a little bit behind. If I didn't read your super chat, no worries. I didn't skip it. I'm just a little bit behind. I do apologize. And I thank you guys for being patient. Easy Tone says, follow up to my last super chat. That was my first gut reaction. But Uncharted is basically Indiana Jones. The Last of Us is the only hope for humanity trope. Both ended up amazing. They could nail it. And you are 100% correct. See, that's the beautiful thing about Naughty Dog, that I think we should be willing to at least give them a chance. Even if you're somebody who is really turned off by what we're seeing right now, it's that you look at Uncharted and you look at, especially I would say The Last of Us. I say The Last of Us because, dude, The Last of Us came out at a time when the, post-apocalyptic only hope for humanity trope was at its peak. And it was like, oh God, here we go. Here's their take on it now. But it's like, holy shit, their take was the best one we could have gotten from anybody. Like, this is incredible. And that's the beauty of it, is like, Naughty Dog they have proven that they are able to enter these genres, or, they say there's only so many stories you can tell. There's like a finite amount of stories. They're going to take a story that's already been told, but they're going to do it in their way. And they've proven they can execute that very well. Now, for me, I know I say The Last of Us Part 2 was not what I wanted, and I don't hold that story in as high regard as others. However, The Last of Us 1 is one of my favorite games of all time. And I love that. Like, I think it might be like one of the, if not the best story experience I've had in a video game. Right up there. I don't think it surpassed Metal Gear Solid for me, but it's right up there. That's something that means something to me. Like, I don't just ignore that. And I understand there are people who are like, well, those days are long gone, bro. And that's true. Bruce Straley was a part of it. You're absolutely right. And those days could be gone. They might not be able to. Like I said this yesterday, Naughty Dog may have just peaked for me. And I just have to look back and accept that, you know what? That's as good as it's going to get for me with Naughty Dog. And that's okay. But I'm willing to give them that chance of like, show me what you got. Like, I've seen your work. I've seen what you did before. Let's see what you can do here. Because I do like Cowboy Bebop. Akira's pretty cool too. But I definitely like Cowboy Bebop better. And the fact that that's such a heavy inspiration for them, I'm like, all right, I'm willing to give you that benefit of the doubt, and I'm not just going to jump on the hate train here. Show me what you got, because you might be able to shock me. You know, I would love for that to happen. Who wouldn't? Well, I think there are people who definitely wouldn't want that to happen for obvious reasons, but we're not going to delve into that again. We also have super chat from or sorry, a milestone chat from Garrett Green, member for 14 months. Thank you for that, buddy. Saying there's balance. Plenty of games with white males and games with women and gays, but I don't care about any of it. Gameplay is king. I'm sick of culture warring. Yeah, Garrett, it's hard for me to feel like I disagree in any way with that because I'll be straight up when I say that you could give me a game with a not great story and not interesting characters, but if it has must play gameplay, I will have fun with it. Might not be my favorite game of all time, might not be my number one game, but I love games. I love to play video games. I mean, listen, I just got done platinuming Until Dawn. That is not a video game ass video game. That is the opposite. That is like a movie game. The gameplay in Until Dawn is not great because that's not really why you're playing it. And that's kind of what's awesome about video games in general is there is such a wide range of different experiences that you can play the most video game ass video games. You can play something in between. You can play something like Until Dawn. Yeah, I could play Helldivers 2 and then I can play Until Dawn and then I can play The Last of Us. You know what I mean? And all these things can exist together in harmony. They don't have to all mold themselves and conform to be what everyone or what certain groups say they should be. Like I said, man, I do believe there's something out there for everybody. Like there's just too many games these days. Does the AAA space need, you know, are there some changes that need to be made to the AAA space? Yes, but they're not, they extend well beyond just, do we have too many male or female leads? Like there are many problems with AAA games today that need addressing. So it's a multi-pronged problem and we need different solutions for each. King Sausage says, in a so-called weak-ass year, PlayStation takes mad awards. Yep. PlayStation's year was so weak, they took home Game of the Year. Who would have thought? I'm not surprised, dude. I mean, I'm surprised that Astrobot won it, but I'm just saying I'm not surprised that people are starting to realize, people are starting to wake up and realize, you know what? Maybe Sony did have a pretty good year, all things considered. Yeah, they did. Not their best year in their history, but they had a very good year. Even Sony was surprised. Yeah. Awards doesn't mean PlayStation didn't have a weak year. Well, I think broadly speaking, it definitely speaks to a stronger year than what people were making it sound. But I think if we're going to compare PlayStation's year of 2024 to past years, there's definitely arguments to be made that it is a weaker year in terms of, oh, but what about this year and what we got from PlayStation? I think you could, yeah, there's definitely going to be moments like that where it's like, okay, yeah. Man, Helldivers 2 blowing up again. Love to see it, dude. Love to see it. I was happy to see Arrowhead win a couple things too. My dude, listen, I have to tell you, my two favorite parts of the Game Awards last night were not even game reveals. My two favorite parts of the Game Awards were number one, when they had the actor who does the intro cutscene for Helldivers show up in Helldiver gear and deliver that speech. That was amazing. Number two, Sam Lake's inner monologue. Dude, I love that. That was amazing. I was like, that's so well done. And it didn't like overstay. It wasn't like too drawn out. It was like the perfect amount of dialogue. That was funny. I really appreciated that. Also, my third favorite thing. My third favorite thing, um, those puppets. I forget who they are, that their names, but just absolutely roasting Jeff throughout the show. And by the end of it, really seemed like they were going off script. I don't think they were going off script, but man, it seemed like they were actually like starting to just flat out shit on Jeff Keighley, and it was funny as hell to watch. That was pretty funny, I have to admit. All right, we have some more super chats here. We have a direct donation as well, which I will read in a minute. Figuratively literal, you're saying if the character was white, straight, and male, it would be more relatable to me. But to write something off because the character is not is absurd. I do agree with that. I have grown to understand and maybe even accept the absurdism, but that I think is necessary to do because humanity is kind of insane sometimes. I do wholeheartedly agree that is an absurd reason to write a game off, but I also understand and accept that there will be people who write the game off because of that. And all I can say to that is just please don't be insane about it. Like, if that's your reason for writing a game off, that's within your right. But please don't impose that on others as if we should write off a game for that reason too. That's where I draw the line. But yes, it at the end of the day, I do believe it is absurd. But as you know, when you look out your window, or even if you don't look out your window and you open your phone and you check the news tab, we realize that humanity is filled with a lot of absurdity, isn't it? Bro, I love how, as I say that, the first chat I see is somebody screaming, Phil Spencer's fuming. Yeah, man. I'm sure Phil Spencer couldn't sleep last night because Astrobot won Game of the Year. Poor Phil. Um, Steranko with a $5 super chat says, I just hate how Naughty Dog went from the darlings of the industry to being the most divisive. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, Steranko. I will say that I do not enjoy how divisive and polarizing PlayStation as a whole has become in the year 2024. And part of the reason I hype things up so much is because I keep kind of waiting for Sony to announce something or reveal things that are going to basically unite the entire community where everybody is looking at each other, like everybody under one umbrella, the PlayStation umbrella, and high-fiving each other and being like, this is fucking awesome. And I'm just starting to think that that might not happen anymore. And I don't necessarily know that it's fully Sony's fault as much as it's just times have changed. Society has changed. Everything is changing. And I just think, we have to do our best to navigate it. And I will do my best to talk about it with the um, care that it deserves, because it's definitely not something that is as easily written off as I think some people make it seem, because it's more prevalent than ever. Chartard, you're saying it's not just the inclusion of male main characters, it's the replacement of competent male characters that act and behave in masculine manners. Joel's treatment is endemic of the feminist agenda to de uh denigrate. Why can't I denigrate? I'm sorry. I don't know why that word really to denigrate. Am I saying that right? Denigrate men. I need to look this up. Denigrate, criticize, unfairly disparage. Okay, I actually am. I think that's the first time I've ever seen that word. Like, I may have seen that word before, but I was not. I was having trouble. Yeah, I'm like, what is this word? Um. So this is a well constructed super chat, and here's how I'll respond to it. You said Joel's treatment is endemic of the feminist agenda to denigrate men. I disagree. And the reason for this is because when I look at how they handled Joel's character for the entirety of The Last of Us Part 2, I did like Joel when he was playable and a, a badass protector, blowing the heads off of clickers and beating the shit out of, you know, bad guys who were attacking them to protect Ellie. Um, I love that version of Joel, and I think that's an awesome version of Joel. And that's where like I feel relatable, where it's like, yeah, as a man, I feel like I want to protect and if I was in a survival situation, I'm going to protect my own and all that, and the struggle and all that shit. However, no, when I've played The Last of Us Part 2 multiple times, I think that if you look at what they did with Joel's character, I actually think they did him justice, dude. I think that when you saw they showed a different side to Joel that I think as a man, like that side exists, dude. Like the side that wants to live a peaceful life, and settle down and enjoy your coffee, play some guitar, do some fucking wood carving. Get it, I think in the game they hint that he had a girlfriend, you know, and he's trying to reconnect with Ellie. It's like, dude, in my opinion, none of that stuff makes me feel like that's a feminist agenda to, reduce Joel's manliness. If anything, I think it shows the full scope of, yeah, dude, that's to me, that's the scope of manhood, where like when you're in the shit and you gotta fight, you fight. You're fucking you'll do shit that you otherwise would never think about doing to protect others, to fight for your life. But when you're fucking home, when you're home, when the war's over, you're not a monster. You're just you're just a you're just a guy trying to live, man. Probably with night sweats at that point, night terrors. And I think that, I specifically think to the final scene where he talks to Ellie, and I had to play the game a couple times to really dissect this scene and really try to fully understand it. Where specifically when Joel turns to Ellie and says, I would do it all again. Like if I had another chance, like I would do it the exact same way. That to me, it that wasn't meant to make him seem like the villain. That was meant to express, I think, some of the truest, rawest, like just realist, human driven emotion that, and again, I feel like I can relate to it very deeply as a, as a father and as a man who feels like, I play that protective role. Like, yeah, I would do like that shit was raw and it was real. And basically, what I think he was saying in that moment is that if he knew the price that he would have to pay, which is I'm going to die a brutal death and get my head bashed in by somebody that I basically wronged without knowing. I think he was basically saying if it meant saving you, I would do it again. And that's my interpretation of it. I'm a little bit behind on the super chats. Okay, I think I have a couple of direct donations that I'm really late on, so I do apologize for that. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm going a little bit too deep, but um I don't know. I felt like they didn't do Joel's character wrong in that game. I think that in reality, Joel's decisions were heavy, complex decisions that were going to, no matter what, have profound implications for not only him, but Ellie and anybody else around him. And and I think that is the way it goes for a lot of people, certainly a lot of men, and women. But I don't, it reminds me of like people who talk about older Kratos now and how they view him as soft and weak and like us, and I don't see that at all. Like I see the opposite. I see strength. Like I see a man who has overcome, blinding rage that has almost ruined his entire life and realizing that there is a different way. It's not to say that old Kratos, yeah, I do agree. Old Kratos is nuanced. There is depth to old Kratos. And I think what makes old Kratos so interesting is that it reveals the deeper layers that were always there within him, but they could not properly come out or be expressed due to just the blinding, seething rage, you know? That was his pure driver. So I think that there are people who interpret these, you know, these expressions that we are seeing from a more masculine point of view as emasculine or demasculinizing or whatever. Um, and to be fair, that does happen on rare occasion in media where we do see idiotic writers who do have an agenda and they're like, I just want to ruin this character. Like they're not saying that, but like basically they're like, yeah, I don't care. This doesn't really mean much to me. Or, I mean, you saw what happened with Luke Skywalker, um, which wasn't even, I don't know. I understand why people were so upset about that because, like, bro, Luke would never behave that way. But that's neither here nor there. It does happen from time to time. It does happen. And when that happens, it is shitty because you're like, God damn, why would you do this to this character? Like this doesn't feel like the character I've known at all. Um, but that's why I think it's a matter of how it's handled. If it's handled with the care it needs and deserves, it can be done and it can be executed perfectly. It's hard. It's hard to do that. And so sorry for really going on that diatribe there, but I understand where you're coming from, Chartard, and I'm not saying that what you're highlighting doesn't exist. It does exist. I just don't think it's as widespread or as aggressively placed as some people think it is. That's all. Kazjam, a member for 19 months, says, I'm not attracted to computer generated humans. You sure about that, Kazjam? You sure about that? That almost sounds like something somebody who is secretly attracted to computer generated humans would say. I'm just kidding, Kazjam. I'm just kidding. It's just so funny because I feel like that just came out of nowhere. The first stage is denial. No, I'm just messing with you, man. No, I agree. I think people get a little bit too strange. Jackson Birch with a $20 super chat. Thank you, buddy. You're saying respectfully, I think it's just a character design issue. I don't think game developers realize how important it is for the player to like the look of a character. People don't want to play as a character for 20 uh, to 50 hours. It could be that simple. But I do feel like when you look at a character like the one in Intergalactic, it there's no denying that an immense amount of thought goes into these character designs. That's what's, I think, important to highlight. When we see this character, every single decision with how this character looks was 100% intentional, and a lot of thought went into it. So we have to ask ourselves, what what does that mean for us, the onlooker, the person who's seeing this character design for the first time? What does it mean when the knee-jerk reaction is, I don't really like the way this character looks? We have to then ask ourselves, was this the intent? And then when people dig a little bit deeper, they start to take a closer look at this character and they think, what was the intent, to get people a little bit riled up, maybe? Like, to purposely make a character that doesn't look very appealing so that way people will be like, "Oh my god." And it will spark that type of conversation. It's possible. And that is where the good faith versus bad faith arguments come into play, where it's like bad faith says, yeah, they absolutely know what they're doing, and this is exactly what they're trying to do. The good faith argument is, we're overthinking it and we're overanalyzing it, and it's really not that serious. They just want to, this is the actress that they wanted, and they like the way she looks, and this is what they wanted her to look like. But I will say this, I do think that you are making not a huge statement, but a small statement where it's like, in the trailer, we're going to show this female shaving her head. I do think you're making a small statement. I think it's a little bit on the nose, but again, it's not that serious, because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, it's a bald chick, like, not the most common thing, but not problematic either. There is something to be said for what you're saying here, Jackson. Could Naughty Dog just make a very, I guess you could say, aesthetically appealing, just very surface level aesthetically appealing character? Absolutely, they could. Yes, they could. And they did. Seemingly, they didn't. So that's where it really just kind of boils down to, which side do you lean on here? Do you believe it's like, do you have the bad faith argument? Are you leaning towards that, or are you leaning towards the good faith? And I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now is King Sausage is saying they are normalizing every type of representation. And, I honestly feel as though I'm starting to lean more towards that, where it's like, yeah, I don't think that, I don't think it's like that crazy. I mean, people are so fixated. I've seen that specifically on Twitter the most. People are so fixated on how ugly this character is. And I'm like, I don't I don't know, man. Like, can can we just see what her personality's like first? I actually don't know. So you should see if he's in the other cat tower. Yeah. I don't know. See if you can. All right. No. Okay. I did not see Paul Tassie's tweet about the Bungie news. If you could let me know what he said. Perfect Image, you're saying this may not be your game. What's your take on Mafia 4? I think Mafia 4 looks cool. Yeah, that's a game that definitely spoke to me immediately, where I'm like, okay, I like the direction they're going here with Mafia. The trailer I thought was pretty badass. Definitely gave me Mafia vibes. So it looks good. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I like the idea that you're like younger and being initiated. Over 700 people have left Bungie this year. I'm not surprised to hear that. It really does seem like Bungie has bled out in terms of just the amount of developers and employees they had. Mafia in Sicily looks sick. It does look cool. Yeah, I'm probably gonna play that game. Just want to see some gameplay next. You know, we got the teaser trailer, then the CG trailer. Now we got to see some gameplay. Um, Easy E, you're saying MBG look into Anita Sarkeesian's involvement in the industry right around, I guess you're saying 2016, 2018. This is when games started to get these Abby like characters. Thoughts? So I have done. That's so funny, dude. I didn't. I couldn't see him. It's all good. He's good. He's good. Sorry about that, guys. Mrs. MBG came in asking where Boss was, and I didn't know where he was. We were a little bit worried about him earlier. Well, he threw up a hairball last night. We were a little bit worried about him, and and she like couldn't find him, and she opened the door and was like, "Is he in here?" And I didn't. I can't see over my monitor here. He's in the room. He's literally in the room. He's just laying right over there, and we just both completely ignored him. And she got really worried, and she's like, I got to go find him." So anyway, um, Easy E, you're asking me about Anita Sarkeesian and her involvement in the industry. Yeah, I have done some research into Anita Sarkeesian, and my assessment of this individual is she is a mostly a grifter. And I know that that term is like heavily used these days, but I mean, like, she was grifting prior to when grifting became like a popular thing to do. I've heard some of her takes, I've listened to some of her things, her opinions. Um, she, I'll be honest, she seems like an individual that definitely has a very clear agenda that she is not hiding and is trying to rally the troops, so to speak, to basically get this Trojan horse into the games industry. And I think she successfully did it. The fact that Neil Druckmann literally took inspiration from it. I do think Neil Druckmann, like, Neil Druckmann talked about how The Last of Us, there was a secret agenda. He admitted this. The secret agenda is we want to put we want to make a main character a lesbian, essentially. Like that was basically his agenda. Um, and I would say he successfully did that. I will say, if that was Naughty Dog's original intent, it's a little misguided. So it's a little misguided where it's like that's an unnecessary agenda to have, I would say. But if you're going to do it, you probably can if you handle it with the care and respect it deserves. That's psychotic. I like Left Behind. Yes. And that's the thing I want to highlight here is the intent is like, whoa, that's pretty loaded. A little concerning. What's going on here? The execution, well done. And that's what matters. Listen, everybody has an agenda at the end of the day. Nobody's walking around in life without their own agenda. Even if you don't, some people just aren't fully aware of it. But trust me, everybody has an agenda, and that's okay. You just got to know what it is and why it is that. That's the important part. The agenda of we want to make a main character a female, a tough female lesbian. Yeah, that's going to be tough. That's going to be a hard thing to do. You're not just going to be able to drop that in. Handle it with care, handle it with nuance, treat it with the respect that it serves the game first and foremost, and you might be able to pull it off. And I think they did with Ellie. I do. I think they successfully pulled it off with Ellie. I think they tried to one up themselves with Abby and be like, can we take it even further? And I think that they didn't. I think that they struggled. Um, but when it comes to Anita Sarkeesian, I think the longer she was involved in the industry, the more it became clear what her agenda was and what her intent was. And she definitely represents the angry, scorned, we're coming back with a vengeance type of feminism that I think is frankly damaging, to where it's like eye for an eye type shit. And that to me is not productive. Not to say that every single thing she's ever said is that, but that I think started to bleed through and eventually became very clear that she is not the ideal leader or messenger. And I think that's why she just no longer is relevant. Unfortunately, I do think she has had a relatively profound impact on some of these studios. But the idea that there are going to be women in the industry that do feel like they need to be better represented, or, there needs to be a bit of a balance, that's going to exist. And I just think it really boils down to, listen, it's just like anything else. If you want to initiate change, it's going to require um, effort. It's going to require, I would say, persistence, but it's going to require more than anything, like good leadership. You know, I think anybody who's quote unquote leading a charge really needs to take a step back and ask themselves, are you the right person? Like, truly, do you really believe you are doing more good than harm? And I think that unfortunately, especially today, I think Anita Sarkeesian was just the beginning. Especially today, on both sides of the spectrum, there are people in, if not leadership positions, people with mass influence that are absolutely not qualified to have the amount of influence that they do. And it's unfortunate. This is why I push for people to think for themselves, to educate themselves, to not be a fucking drone. Because believe me when I tell you, more people than ever before are gaining popularity, are gaining power, are gaining influence. And the people that I'm referring to are individuals who their agenda and their ill intent, they literally wear it on their sleeve and people still support it. That's the type of stuff we need to scrub out. And the only way we do that is by stop falling for it, you know? So, Captain Hook, you're saying, I think what people are noticing is the agenda to redefine women in gaming, upend traditional beauty ideals, and place strong male characters in the backseat. It's overdone and a little cliche at this point. I can agree with that, Captain Hook, but I think it is dependent upon what we are evaluating. I think it depends on, it's different for each story, each character, each studio, each publisher, each game, each movie, each TV show. It's different, but I do think that there is a through line that has made itself very visible to a lot of people, and this is what causes the eye roll. It is the cliche moments that you are speaking of, where it's like, we get it. We get it. We got it like 6 years ago. We understand. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to beat us over the head with it. And I think that's the important part. And I think that's where the hope is. The hope, Captain Hook, is that more developers, more writers are waking up to the reality that, man, this was kind of okay at first because it was maybe a little bit necessary, where we got to like somewhat forcefully kind of like make it known. But now it's gotten to a point where they're definitely, it's like they have to take a step back and ask themselves, is this too on the nose? And the answer is, in some, not a lot, but half the cases, or some of the cases, at least a third, is yes, it's too on the nose. and you're going to turn people off from what you're trying to do. Do you know the best way to get people to be receptive to a female lead character in gaming and to redefine women in gaming? You want to upend traditional beauty ideals and all this stuff. You know the best way to do that? Uh, Create a really interesting character that people feel as though they can relate to some extent in a more universal way, where I don't need to be a woman to understand this character, this human being, this character that's written to be a human being going through human struggles. That's what you do. And if you and that's where it has been revealed, the bad actors, the people who have made their way into these positions, into these industries, who are not qualified, who convince themselves they are, who convince people around them that they are, but it's eventually revealed that you are not. You are not qualified. Point in case, or case in point, I mean, being look at how people have responded to the characters you've written or the stories you've tried to tell. That's, I think, what it comes down to. People need to stop riding the cliche, and they need to be smarter than that. They need to understand that we're beyond the cliche. Cypherpunk, you're saying Phil Spencer was hanging out with Ken Kutaragi and Kojima last night. These people are all friends or colleagues, regardless of the warring from fans. Absolutely. Yeah, I was expecting to hear from Ken Kutaragi. It was interesting. They they highlighted his attendance, and he even got up, which was kind of like, I don't know if that was a bit of confusion going on there, but he got up and it looked like he was going to go give a speech or something. So I don't know if something just went wrong there, but yeah, dude, behind the scenes, they are all in the business of video games and they are competitors, but they're also very understanding that, you know, they're they're doing a job and that, when they get together at moments like this, they're not being petty towards each other. And that's what's so sad is like you see people on Twitter where I see people get into arguments so heated on Twitter occasionally. Ken wanted an award. I see people get into arguments over video games on the internet that get so heated that it genuinely does come across like if they were to be in the same room with one another, they would start swinging at one another. Over what? Meanwhile, you have these top executives who are literally in competition with one another in the same room, and they're just laughing and joking around with each other and talking and getting along. That's where I think people should take. I've been saying this multiple times. Everybody's got to take a step back, reevaluate yourself. Reevaluate yourself. You're acting like you're going to swing at somebody on the internet over a video game. Go take a walk. Figuratively literal, you're saying they did that with the Witcher TV series too. I saw that, and I think that I don't know. I can't really speak to that because I haven't seen it, so I don't want to overstep my boundaries here and attempt to speak on something that I am ignorant to. I did see there was some drama regarding the Witcher TV series, and if I looked into it and I got the full picture, I would feel comfortable giving my 2 cents, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one. I do see that there seems to be some people upset at the fact that The Witcher 4 is going to star, uh, what is her name, Siri, and she's a female. I already saw people pointing out that they believe they gave her a strong jawline, and this is where I'm just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. I watched that trailer. She looked fine. She like there are some instances where I see like Mary Jane and they show some images of that with Spider-Man 2. And I'm like, yeah, something went wrong here. I don't know what happened. Something doesn't look quite right. I watched the trailer for The Witcher 4 and I'm like, she looks fine. I don't like I don't know what people are seeing to make them feel like, oh my God, but I just I I don't think she doesn't look like, she's not like, oh my God, she's supermodel, the sexiest female character I've ever seen. It's not that, but she definitely doesn't look ugly. She doesn't look like she was beat with an ugly stick either. She just looks fine. She looks like she looks like a human being. Saying Mary Jane looked fine too. I think what I've noticed with the whole Mary Jane thing is it seems to be in some instances she kind of looks fine, but in other instances something dude, I think something went wrong with her character model, bro. The more I haven't seen it in a little bit, but when I was looking at it and I was seeing all these images floating around, I think something just went wrong. It's like I don't know how to explain it. It looked like something was just undercooked or something, underbaked with her character model where I'm like, what happened? Like she looked in some instances radically different from the first game. But we'll see what they do with the third game. We'll see what they do with the third game, bro. You know, it would be so funny, just for shits and giggles. I hope that they just transform her face even more into something just like unrecognizable, just because it would be so funny. It's almost like they're just playing into it now at this point. But it's neither here nor there. Mary Jane looking the way she did not negatively impact my experience in Spider-Man 2. The worst thing it did was make me a couple of times go, huh, something looks a little off. And then I move on and continue playing the game and enjoying my time with it. They're going to give her 5 o'clock shadow. Dude, I would love it. You ever see that meme or the gif of, it's the gif of Will Ferrell being like, I love it. I love it. I mean, I will embrace the chaos at that point. I will become the very thing I swore to be against. I am the chaos. But Black Myth Wukong delivers a super chat. The Black Myth Wukong says, robbed. I'm sorry, Black Myth Wukong. I'm sorry you feel this way. It's okay. You're still a good game. You're still a great game. You're still a great game. It's fine. Let me see here. Oh yeah. So I got 2 more super chats, and then we'll move to the direct donations. Cypherpunk says Ripley and Furiosa, bald and badass. Bald and badass, just like me. Just like me. Hey, they're just like me. I'm just like them. Cypherpunk also saying Nathan Drake being straight was made pretty clear. Are you sure? You sure about that? I mean, yeah, I played the intro to Uncharted 4, but are you sure about that? I'm just kidding. I don't know why I keep saying that today. I have a couple of direct donations from, let's see here, Moonshot. And Moonshot, I apologize for making you wait so long, man. My notifications have not been going off on time with my direct donations. You're saying, I'm afraid Wolverine is in development hell. Going into 2025 without a peep since 2021 is quite the damaging sign to me. Then the 2 directors leaving. Also, where's your stream from last night? I was hoping to see your reactions. Some awesome announcements for sure. Sifu Soccer, let's effing go. LOL, cheers, MBG. Yeah, that caught me off guard. So for those still asking about my stream, because I know people are kind of coming in and out of the stream, it is currently in copyright hell right now. It has multiple copyrights blocking. It's just blocked in certain regions. So it's kind of in an again. It's you talk about development hell. That stream is in copyright hell. I can't guarantee anything. So if it doesn't show up, it doesn't show up. But I might try to remove some of these copyrights or like edit certain parts of the stream, but it literally could take, and I'm not kidding, it could take days for it to work. And in some cases, it just doesn't. So that's the situation with that stream. This has happened to me before with other event streams. It doesn't happen all the time, but there's always that risk. So I'm sorry to anybody who wanted to tune into that and can't watch it, but I'm at least here today talking to you about it. And Moonshot, I also will say I'm a little bit worried about Wolverine as well. I thought that if we well, hold on. It is worth noting that Jeff Grubb did comment on the Wolverine situation after the two directors left, and he basically said that the game is actually going well. So he was saying that behind the scenes, there's not some kind of like major problem. There's not some kind of major problem or it's not in development hell. So I guess it depends on how much you trust Jeff Grubb. But but to me that's somewhat reassuring. But yeah, I am a little bit concerned at the fact that this is a game that was announced in 2021 and we're going to go into 2025 and we haven't seen anything. But maybe they're just cooking, and best case scenario Moonshot, Sony's planning on handling Wolverine the same way they handled Ghost of Yote, which is years of silence, and then when it's ready to show, it's ready to show, and it'll have a release year attached to it, and it'll be coming in about a year. They could be doing that, and I wouldn't be shocked if that's what they're doing, but I am a little concerned. Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing in 2025. Moonshot, thank you so much for the direct donations, buddy. We also have Jerry Gamer with a super chat saying, if it's not from Naughty Dog, nobody's going to remember it. I was thinking about that. I was thinking about if this game was revealed by a different studio that was not Naughty Dog, what would people's reactions to it be? I don't think it would be too different, but I think there'd be a lot less people talking about it, truthfully. I do think there'd be a lot less people talking about it. All right. You know what's funny to me? I've been seeing that like different peripherals apparently or accessories for the Switch 2 have been leaking, but it's just like it just looks like a Switch. Like it just looks like the Switch, you know? Like what's up with that? Let's see. Where are we here? Okay. Bro, I've been streaming for almost 3 hours. Holy shit. I'm a little freaked out. Where did the time go? I did not realize I was streaming for 3 hours. I'm not even kidding. I thought it was 2 hours. I feel like I lost an hour, guys. I don't like this. I guess I should be wrapping this up soon. Sheesh. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I really, yeah, you're right. I did start an hour earlier today. Maybe that's why I feel so messed up. Yeah. It's just weird because usually I have a pretty good feel for how long I've been streaming. And this was, I thought for sure like my timer was glitched, but it's like 2 hours and 53 minutes. I'm like, what? I thought it was an hour and 53 minutes. Xbox is king. You're saying MBG. You want to hear something funny? I'm going to a lot of Xbox channels. They banned me, come after me because I go to Sony channels. They give me mod status to give me memberships. I'm going to be honest. I didn't quite understand what you said. I did not fully comprehend what you said. You've watched nearly 10 hours of you in a day now. Yeah, wow. Thank you for that, Gavin. I'm sorry to stick around so long. Yeah, this is weird. I streamed for like nearly 8 hours yesterday. So we're almost at an 11-hour mark here. But I mean, the Game Awards. So The final thing I'll ask you guys before I head out is, what did you think of the Game Awards last night? Did you think it was a good show? Did you think it was underwhelming? Did you think it was one of the best shows? Was it just okay? I would do a poll, but I'm not going to be here long enough to let it solid B, extremely disappointing. Michael, you're saying full-time gig? Yeah. Yeah, full-time gig, bro. 24-hour stream, right? Not enough gameplay, 7 out of 10. I mean, I'll be honest, I thought it was a very good show. I just think the problem was the pacing once again, but I think that was made up for by the fact that there were like Jeff Keighley did show up. He brought he brought some good shit. He brought some surprises, which I think is great. And I think that makes all the difference. But I do think the pacing was a little bit off, as it always is with with the Game Awards, where there was a lull period. There was, especially I would say around between the 2 and 2.5 hour mark. That's when it starts to get like, okay, I need something to pull me back in because this is getting tough. But he did. No, Death Stranding did not make an appearance. Kojima was there, but he didn't have a game this time. So Split Fiction was the best looking game they showed last night. There were quite a few games. I'll be honest, there's a lot of games that I didn't like. I have to kind of go back and relook or reevaluate everything that was shown, but there was quite a bit that I'm interested in, like Mafia 4, Onimusha. I don't really have a history with Onimusha, but I really liked what they showed. That game called Kazan, the First Berserker, or something like that. That I will say they showed a CG trailer for that, but I went and I watched gameplay. That looks very good. That's coming out in March. I want to play that. Um, The Witcher 4, I like the trailer, but I'm not quite there. You know, I in case it's not clear, I'm not I don't have any problems with CD Projekt Red, but I'm not a huge fan. I think they're amazing. Like clearly what they do is amazing, but for some reason they've never really quite been on my radar the way that they are for most other people. Maybe that's got to change for me. But I really did like the trailer they showed. I thought it was pretty badass. I'm dead to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I may have to change that. People have been begging me to play Cyberpunk, and I will say I put the physical PS5 version of Cyberpunk, the complete edition, into my wish list. So it might be happening at some point. We got Wabu Dude with 3 super chats. Thank you for that, Wabu Dude. Yeah, guys, if you want to donate anything, if you want to drop any more super chats, if you want to drop any member gifts, or if you want to become a member or drop a direct donation, uh, this will basically be last call for that because I'm going to be wrapping the stream up in just a couple minutes. Um, Wabu Dude, you're saying here, what happened to simply watching a trailer and deciding whether you like what you saw? Nowadays, people go as far as researching the actors, directors, and writers, digging into their political views or opinions on everything from A to Z. When did it become about everything except the actual game? Whatever happened to just playing a game, forming your own opinion, and moving on to the next one? The internet and social media happened, bro. I hate to say it, but Wabu Dude, if this is the last super chat I get today, I think it's a good one because I ask myself the same questions at this point. I do. I don't know why people take it this far. I think there is absolutely, especially right now, something to be said very loudly and firmly. What happened to just seeing a trailer, deciding if it looks good, playing a game, and judging it for yourself? Whatever happened to that? I think the conversation has gotten too I don't want to say loud, just muddied. There's just so much, and I'm contributing to that conversation, but I'm trying my best to not contribute in a negative way. I'm trying as best I can. No, Diego, I don't view it that way. You're saying why not just consume product? No. I think that there's I don't think that's what Wabu Dude's saying. I don't think that's what most people would say. I think what it really is, it's about drawing lines potentially, right? Where it's like I again, I think of Ghost of Yote. It's kind of what you reminded me of. Wabudu were saying, deciding to look up the actors or actresses and then looking up their political beliefs, looking up their social media posts. That to me is kind of crazy. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I can't imagine myself making a decision like, you know what, guys? I saw that Ghost of Yote trailer and it looked awesome. One of the best trailers I've seen in a while. But I'm going to have to pass on this game because it turns out that the actress that I never heard of until today, on her personal Twitter account, um, she seems to be a liberal. Yeah. Yeah. She seems to be a very um, outspoken liberal. And I just can't support that. Listen, if that's what if that's what a person decides, that's within your right. But I just can't imagine skipping a great video game, a potentially great video game because of something like that. I can't imagine doing that. Now, if it was something extreme, this is where I'm saying it's about lines. If it's like the actress who plays this main character was making news and headlines because they committed a crime, you know, and they clearly did something very wrong. So now it's like, are you okay with that? That's different. I think that's different. I think that's like, all right, well, this person committed straight up like a crime and they're guilty of it, you know? Um that's different. Like I can understand why people would be like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to support that now. But there's different degrees with all of this. I don't think there's anything wrong with what Wabu Dude's saying where it's like, guys, you can decide as a consumer how far you want to take it. That's within your right. That's your choice. But I just do think that like sometimes it's good to get back to the basics of just I play video games for entertainment and for fun and for enjoyment and sometimes for, a little bit more than that if you're looking to extract as much as you can out of video games. What's wrong with just letting the video games speak for themselves? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But Wabu dude, thank you so much for the super chats, buddy, and for the support. And guys, this is going to be where I'm going to wrap up today's stream. Over 3 hours. Wasn't expecting to go that long. But yeah, I thought that today's conversation was a good one. Personally, I enjoyed it. And I want to thank everybody for joining me today. I want to thank everybody for allowing me to speak my piece and give my 2 cents. And I want to make sure to give a big thank you to everybody who dropped any direct donations today, whether it be through super chats, memberships, member gifting, or direct donations. I very much appreciate it. I'm only able to do this because you guys make it possible. And we are fan funded. So it means a lot. And as I say that, we have Shems coming in, dropping a single membership gift. Thank you so much for that, Shems. It's very much appreciated, bro. I will add that to the counter here. That brings us to 357 for the month so far. So let me throw that on there. Luna, hold on. Hold on. And we have a super chat from Starscream3117 who says people need to just stop calling everything woke, judging games off of no gameplay or story elements. It's a new IP. Excited to see the gameplay and more. I mean, I think I get what you're saying. I don't bother saying that because people are going to continue to call things woke, whether I think they should or not. I think people can do that. But I think what you're really speaking to here is something that I think we just have to kind of begin to hyper focus on a little bit, which is, hey, listen, if you call a game woke and you don't want anything to do with that game because you've determined it's woke, that's cool. I'm going to wait to see gameplay and I'm going to wait to see more of the game and I'm going to decide if it looks like a good video game and then I'll maybe decide if I'm going to buy it, you know? I just think we've truly reached that point and I'm guilty of this. I want to make it clear. I am self-aware. I am guilty of I constantly go back to using the term woke and feeding into that conversation, which the conversations usually go beyond that. But actually, these days, I'm not so sure. These days, the term woke seems to literally just, I don't know what it means anymore. Like I feel like it's political now. I mean, I guess woke may have, to an extent always been political, but I mean, I really think like when I see somebody say this is woke, what the way I am interpreting that in the year 2024 is you're saying this is left leaning liberal. It's blue, not red. That's what I feel it means anymore, and that's why I feel like it's lost any deeper meaning or yeah. I mean, but you think about like identity politics. And I think, okay, but what is that tethered to at this point in time? Identity politics are tethered like directly to so you're it's tied to a lot of political strife, man. And I think we need to work hard collectively or if not work harder, work smarter and we need to untangle these knots and one of those knots is the word woke. I think we need to just don't don't just say this is woke. Explain explain like speak clearly. Explain. What do you mean? This game is and then you proceed to explain what you think it is and then you say why you think that's a problem. Do that. And I promise more people, well, I'm going to retract that. I can't promise anything. It's 2024. Maybe people will actually ignore you. But the hope is people will take a moment to read what you're saying and if you're making any kind of sense, you might get somebody to take a step back and think, maybe, maybe you're right. Maybe not. Not fully sure. But I at least read what you had to say and you at least explained what you meant. Because I feel like these days, it's like, again, one of the top comments I saw on Twitter yesterday after the reveal of this game, this Naughty Dog game, and this comment, it had like 340 upvotes, which was a lot because the second most upvoted comment had like 50. So this one was by far and away the most upvoted comment, the most popular comment, the most read, the most seen comment. And I'm paraphrasing it, but essentially what it said is, what is up with you guys always making ugly female characters? Why are you doing that? Why can't you just make attractive characters? What do you have against this? I think that's not as bad as just if it was a top comment saying this is woke. That is like there's more explanation there. There's more detail. But that needs to be taken further. Like what do you mean? If this character is not attractive to you, why is that a problem for you? Can you tell Naughty Dog that? That's what I'm saying. Like we need to get down to the fucking very core of you are bothered by this character's appearance. Why? Tell me why it bothers you and how it affects you negatively. If you can do that effectively, we might be able to go somewhere with that. But if you cannot explain that effectively and clearly, then you just sound I don't you don't sound like your reasoning is good. That's what we need to do. And you know why I'm talking about it this way? And I know I'm going on and on here. I know. But I'm talking about it this way because these are the questions that I asked myself. Because I did, so people were saying to me yesterday, like, dude, I think sometimes you're too influenced when you're watching these streams and live reacting. And I'm kind of okay with that at times because I'm like, yeah, I'm in the moment. I'm in the moment. Once I have time to take a step back, I've been saying that a lot, take a step back. Once I have time to do that and really not read what other people are saying, but just think about things. But I do come across what other people say. And I did see that some people were saying that. And it made me think, you know, one of the number one things I've been seeing with this new game are people criticizing the way this character looks. Look at this character. She's ugly. She's bald. I take offense to that. Um, she seems like she might be a girl boss, and I can agree with that. She might, yeah, she seems like she might have that personality. We didn't get much from her, but yeah, okay, I'll give you that. She might have that really hard nosed, like, tense personality that sometimes can be, yeah, it can if it's done poorly and it's overdone, it can be insufferable. When you write, listen, I'm not a writer, but in my experience from what I've consumed, when you write a character with that type of attitude, there has to be another side to them. There has to be redeeming qualities, endearing qualities. These balance the equation. So you have a certain part of this character that you're not a big fan of, and they can be harsh or they can feel insufferable sometimes or like overbearing. But then you see different sides, and you're like, actually, you know what? I feel like I know there's more to this character, and I know what that is. The problem is when you write those characters and you don't add that, and they're just left with an insufferable attitude that nobody likes. Um, but what I'm trying to say here is when people are like, this character's ugly, this is an ugly female character. Why can't you make them more attractive? Why can't you make them more pleasant to look at? I need to know why. I'm serious because when I ask myself, wait a second, I'm a married man, I'm a straight male. Of course, I have eyes. When there's attractive women and they're just some women, oh, they're attractive, they're pretty, they're beautiful. And then there's other people that are not so blessed. But as a 31-year-old grown married man, I've come to the conclusion that, people look fucking different all around. What does it matter to me whether or not they're beautiful or attractive or aesthetically pleasing? If my goal, the only time that should matter is if I'm looking to be with somebody. You know what I mean? And I think about this and I'm thinking, so hold on a second. The only reason I should care, about how a female looks in terms of, is she beautiful? Is she attractive? Does she have assets or not? Whatever, you know, what's her body look like? The only time that should be relevant to me is if I'm basically looking for a partner, right? And I'm out there trying to achieve that. I'm playing a fucking video game. I'm playing a video game. And in this video game, I'm going to be apparently wrecking shit and destroying enemies. Why the fuck should I care? And the realization is I don't. That's the realization, is I don't give a shit if this woman is considered ugly. I do not care. I also wouldn't give a shit if she was considered hot as hell. I don't care. That's not why I'm here. I don't know why anybody else is here, and I can't speak for them. But when I see somebody who gets the most amount of attention by saying, "Why are you making your female characters ugly?" I need them to tell me why that matters to them. And if they admit it, if they just say, "Listen, it's because I don't like looking at ugly people." Well, guess what, buddy? There's ugly people all around. Something tells me that you probably work in an environment where there are ugly people, people you would deem ugly that you have to engage with and you have to look at to a certain extent. You might have family members or friends or whatever, people that are just ugly, as you would call it. Do you go up to him and say, "Why are you, why are you so ugly?" I would hope not, because that's fucking rude, and you're an asshole if you do that. I would also like to know what these people who are saying this, what do they look like? I'm saying these things because people are getting so far away from the fucking reason we are supposed to be here, which is last time I checked, when I see a new video game revealed, I'm supposed to look at what's being shown and think to myself, does this look like it's going to be fun to play on my fucking TV when it comes out and I'm going to have fun and have a good time? Are we forced to buy the game? No. What's the problem, MBG? You're absolutely right. I think that's fine. But I'm just saying the people who are being the most vocal right now, I want to know, why does it matter to you whether or not this main protagonist female is attractive or not? Why does it matter? I need to know. Because if you're going to be screaming, if I have to witness this every time a video game is announced, I have to deal with this insufferable screeching. Give me a good fucking reason. Because if you do not, I'm going to completely disregard it as fucking nonsense. I'm just, I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand so I can reason with people, but I fear that I am attempting to reason with people who are unreasonable. Why is this still a topic? Yeah, I don't know. It's because I've reached that point in my stream. I've reached that point in my stream. MBG, it's the most ugly looking protagonist I've ever seen in a video game. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you, that's fine. That's your opinion, and I have no problem with that, but I'm going to ask you to explain to me, what does that have to do with your decision in buying that video game, playing it, and enjoying it, potentially? Can you explain that to me? I know I sound intense, and I don't mean to sound intense, but I'm genuinely curious. How would that negatively impact your experience with that video game? If you can listen, you may provide me with an answer I'm not expecting, and I'm open to that. Open my eyes if they're closed. You're saying you're asking why the shed head girl boss character isn't appealing to a lot of people. No, no, no. I'm not asking why she isn't appealing. I guess it depends. When you say appealing, I guess we have to ask ourselves what angle we're looking at it from. Do you mean appealing as in like characteristically, like what is her personality? Does she seem like an interesting character? Because I listen, if you say to me, based off of the little we've seen of her interaction, her dialogue, if you were to say to me, I don't think she seems that interesting right now, or I'm just actually not interested at all, I actually completely understand and to an extent kind of agree. There was nothing about her personality in that trailer that made me go, wow, I can't wait to see more of of this character. I didn't hate it. It didn't come off to me as insufferable. It just was mostly like, okay, she's on a mission. That's cool. Uh, I've seen this many times. You know, I've been here many times before. So I really need to see more than this because I get it. She's on a mission. That's cool. She's she's determined and she's on a mission. I want to know I want to see more of the game, and until I see more. But I'm speaking from we're talking physical aesthetics. People do throw around like the shaved head. Like I mean, we shed. She's ugly. She's ugly. Okay. And did that guy ever answer me, by the way? Oh, here we go. You're saying she just doesn't look interesting to me, and I have no problem with a female character. And she also reminds me of Star Wars Acolyte's main lead, which I don't like. Okay. See? You see this? You see what I'm saying? You gave further reasoning why you are not interested in this protagonist, and I think that's fine. But nothing you said has anything to do with beauty at all. In fact, you likened it to another lead protagonist from another series that this character reminded you of based off of what we saw. See, to me, that's fine. That's different. And that makes sense. But that's where we need more of that. We need more of that. We do. I'm not telling people they should like this character or they should be on board with this character. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying like the reasoning people are bringing to the table for automatically not liking this character. They have to go. They has to be better than what we're seeing because we're not seeing good reasoning. And what you just said about like you know she just doesn't seem that interesting to you. She reminds you of another character that you didn't really enjoy in a different whatever universe. That's fine. That's fine. And I think if you were to type that to Neil Druckmann, I don't think he would be offended. Or at least he shouldn't be, because that's fine. You're just expressing your opinion in a reasonable manner. Those are, I would say, valid reasons, not ridiculous reasons. Maybe a bit assumptive, certainly. But on Kaz Jam, thank you so much, buddy. Kaz Jam drops another membership gift. Let me add that to the counter. Very much appreciated, buddy. That's 358. So keeping it going. You're saying she represents the far left activist type. It's how a lot of them look and act. I do agree, but that is stereotyping, and I'm not a fan of that. It's like when I see people with like people, I see people, they talk about people with blue hair, and they're like, I literally saw somebody in my chat like a couple of days ago. I don't know who it was. They were like, anybody with blue hair should get fired. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? I can't imagine that. Like, I can't imagine judging somebody. I'm just saying, man, we got to be better than this. We have to be because we are. I know we are. We need to stop judging people. This is bait. That's the point. We need to be better than to fall for the bait. That if there really are wolves in sheep's clothing behind the scenes, if some of us believe that, we truly believe that these are wolves in sheep's clothing with ill intent, do not fall for their bait because they are banking on that. They want you to get distracted by the shit that does not matter. They want you to be distracted by the shit that does not matter. Corey, you're saying feed the beast. We are at 3 members on the day, Corey. Boss is in here with me. He's actually soaking up some sun. You're You're saying, stop, bro. It's normal to judge, and you do it too, even if you don't realize it. Well, I do agree that we all judge. I'm just saying that I'm not I'm not striving to be perfect. I will never be perfect. And you're right. I will have my biases. I will make my judgments. I just feel that in order to get to a better place, we have to at least try collectively as best we can to not fall for the bait. And I do think what you're saying here, Fishy, like the judgment, I think there are there are people right now that are being proven right, and they shouldn't be. Their cynicism should not be proven right. As soon as we show this character, we're gonna see a wave of people criticizing how she looks. And they're right. They're right. They they were banking on it happening, and they were right. And we shouldn't let them be right. What we should do, what they should be turning around and saying is, wow, nobody criticized her appearance. Turns out they just want to know more about this character. And that's their criticism. They feel like they didn't get enough of this character. They didn't get to know more or hear more or see more of this character. They don't know what to expect. So they're not necessarily on board yet. That's what we should be focused on. And when we can get to that place, that's when we get to the real shit that matters. That's when we get to the real shit that matters. You know? And when you talk about judgments, I've made my own too, right? Like, I'll give you a prime example, ironically enough, with The Last of Us, this time the TV series. When I saw who they casted as Ellie, I judged her because of how she looked. And I think it's understandable because we're talking about a human being playing a digital character, so there is an expectation for how they're going to look. But I judged her because I thought to myself, that doesn't look like Ellie at all. Like, I'm actually kind of stunned at, wow, like, you don't look the part even remotely, and I'm flabbergasted why anybody would think you should play Ellie. But then I saw her performance and I realized, holy shit, I know exactly why they got you to play Ellie, because you fucking nailed it. So even though you may not look exactly the part, you get the most important thing right, which is you are capturing Ellie's essence perfectly. And that, I think that's just a kind of exercise in, like you said, like, we all jump the gun sometimes. We all assume things. We all judge preemptively. But I think we've all experienced what it's like to be proven wrong. I think we've all experienced what it's like to be proven right as well. And you get proven right enough times, it makes a person cynical. It makes a person miserable. And hopefully, hopefully, hopefully we won't keep being proven right. Hopefully those with the cynical outlooks won't continue to be proven right. But yeah, I went on for like another half hour. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Anyway, guys, yeah, that is going to wrap it up. I'm hoping that, the conversation won't continue to just be focused on this going forward. But why are masculine women being promoted so much these days and masculine men are being deemed as toxic? And you know what? That's where I will say, yeah, we've seen too much of that. That is the cliche that we talked about a little bit earlier. And my answer to that is because, again, there are wolves in sheep's clothing. There are bad actors out there where their intent is to demean masculinity while simultaneously taking up the mantle of masculinity. And they don't realize that you are literally being the exact thing you're claiming to be against. And that's bullshit. And we need to call that bullshit out. Because I think what we need are people who understand that masculinity is not bad. Masculinity is literally just like anything else in this life. It can be bad. It can be toxic. But it's all circumstantial. And this is why I tell people we have to we have to observe, like, in this case, I guess the assumption is that, well, this character, uh, Jordan, I guess her name is, this new character was, the assumption is this character was written by a either a male or a female or whatever, by a group of people that have a problem with toxic masculinity. They have a problem with toxic masculinity because toxic masculinity has had a negative impact on their personal lives. So they have brought it to the forefront here, and they are now going to take action against it. And their way of taking action against it is by reversing the roles. We are going to take a female and we're going to make the female have the more masculine traits. And what that will do is it will reveal the toxic baby masculinity incels or whatever, because they're going to get all mad about it. But to me, that is the bad faith argument. And to me, that shit needs to stop, because it's like, if that's your goal, if that's your intent, what are you doing? Grow the fuck up. Grow up. Make a badass character. Just do that. Don't worry about what the incels think. Don't let your personal experiences, negative experiences, completely dictate, with masculinity, dictate your view on it. People need to have a wider view, and they need to understand that it all comes back down to stereotyping. People need to stop doing that. I know it's hard, especially when you have firsthand experience with certain things. But if we can move past that, people will start to grow up a little bit and mature and realize, like, we don't need to do it this way. There is a better way. Cynthia, you're saying, remember when gamers would first notice about a trailer that it wasn't gameplay, and then that they want to see the actual game? Now the first complaint is, not a man woke. How far we have fallen. And that's what I mean, Cynthia. Like, you're right. And the people, listen, if we believe, if some of us believe, like I said, I don't mean to sound like I'm repeating, but maybe it is worth repeating. If there are some of us that do believe that there are evil villain types behind the scenes, right? I don't know why I'm doing this with my hands. I guess that's an evil villain, right? They're behind the scenes. They're purposely constructing things to be this way. They're purposely trying to bait all of us out. They're trying to prove to everybody that, see, my cynicism is justified. My hatred, my animosity, my negativity, it's all justified because look at them. Look at their behavior. They proved me right, and now it's out there for all to see. In that case, they have won. And that's why I'm trying to tell people, even if you truly do believe that, I think it's a bit overly paranoid. I don't think it's as bad as some people make it sound, but we see there are now groups of people. There are YouTube channels, there are Twitter pages, there are social media influencers where their entire shtick is anti-woke everything. We need to be careful when looking at those individuals, because it needs to be understood those individuals are making money off of that. They're making money off of people's fear and assumptions and hatred. We need more people that are going to cut through that shit, where they're not making money off of it either way. They're just evaluating it simply for what it is, what it might be, but do some digging. Not bullshit digging, not the kind of digging where it's like, I'm only going to show you what I want to show you and frame things the way I want to frame them so I can maximize profitability. Not that. What are we You're saying we are evaluating for what it is. It's apparent, and we have eyes. Starscream 3117 says, let's be real. The biggest travesty was Arcane losing to Fallout last night. Let's focus on the real problem, Starscream. Would you say that was the biggest upset? I don't know. I think Astrobot was the biggest upset, dude. Well, I don't know. I don't know if we can expect any type of change anytime soon, but I've just about had as much as I can take when it comes to, simply put, and I know it's probably not ideal for me to put things simply because I'm also the one telling people we need to, come on, boss. We need to be, I'm also the one telling people we need to be more in depth and more in detail. But my hope is after these 3.5 hours, I was detailed enough. I did explain thoroughly. But simply put, at the end here, I've had about as much as I can take of the bullshit. I didn't start this YouTube channel to talk about this stuff. And I would have never predicted when I did start this YouTube channel and I decided to put my passion for video games at the forefront that this is where we would end up. And it's not always going to be this way. It isn't always this way, but it is more prevalent than ever. And it is becoming, I would say, simply put, problematic. I do. I think it's becoming problematic where we can't just see things anymore without swaths and swarms of people in the chat, in the comments, on the social media, screaming woke, screaming ugly, screaming this, screaming that without saying anything of substance. And I just want to cut through that shit as swiftly as I possibly can at this point and get to the parts that really matter and focus on that. And my hope is that in doing that, more people will be able to start doing that too, or gravitate towards that. It's just the people that make these games that I can't stand. The characters reflect their awkward view of the world. Sometimes. Sometimes. And that's what I mean. We have seen that sometimes, and that is a problem. And we do need to identify that. I just think we've reached an oversaturation point where everybody's grouping everything together, and it's not. It's like it's like if you were to pull out a big box of wires. There's like 300 different wires and cables in this box, and you go to pull out one wire, and when you do that, it's a whole fucking ball of wires. And it's like the equivalent of doing that and then saying, this is just one wire. Maybe 3 at most. It's like, no, dude, that's like 300 fucking wires. And they're all, it ain't going to be easy. And nobody wants to do it. But we're going to have to untangle that shit. You know what I mean? It is easier to just say, this is just one wire. And it's broken. And I hate it. And fuck this. I'm not undoing all this. Why should I do this? Nobody wants to. But somebody has to, right? Somebody has to. We have to. We owe it to ourselves as passionate gamers, I believe. We owe it to ourselves because let's face it, man, the biggest travesty of all here, and I say this gamer to gamer, the biggest travesty of all here is the fact that there are people missing out on good to great gameplay experiences for some of the silliest reasons ever. And that, to me, if that's occurring, at that point, I'm not even sure who the villain really is, but somebody is losing out. Totally needlessly. MEG, you're asking someone to look deeper and many either can't because they're not capable or they're not aware enough to get it done. I understand, but there was a point in time in my life where I wasn't capable or aware enough, and it took time. It took experience. It took me to listen a little bit more, to learn, right? And I guess I just my hope is, like I said, not trying to make it seem like something bigger than it is. It's not, but my hope is that maybe sometimes after conversations like this, people who are willing to listen, they might it's not about convincing anybody of anything, but they might hesitate a little bit and think a little bit deeper and think, is there more to this than my mind is immediately drawing me to, like don't be the moth to the flame. Don't. It's easy. It's hard. It's both. It's easy to be the moth to the flame. It's hard when you see that flame to not just dive in. Mrs. MBG sounds more base than even MBG, not gonna lie. I've joked around with her so much. And I'm like, if you were on my channel a lot more, I think people will be like, bro, Mrs. MBG is the most based. For sure. Like I think she has opinions and yeah, for sure, dude. For sure. And that's so funny to me. And that's going to be a thing that probably, occurs more on the channel, which is good. I think that it makes for a good dynamic. So if I say something that you don't agree with, chances are Mrs. MBG will say something you do agree with. So we win either way over here. But all right, guys. Thank you so much. Seriously. I know I was supposed to end this like 40 minutes ago. Um Thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening in. And I know not everybody agrees with what I'm saying, and I'm not asking you to agree, but I just want you to understand I appreciate you listening in, and just your willingness to hear me out is noteworthy. So thank you. And that's gonna do it for this stream. Definitely way longer than I thought, man. I did not think I would go nearly 4 hours. Um Garrett Green says, despite everything, I am hyped for the future of gaming. We're going to get some great masterpieces. And I feel that way too, dude. I don't think everything's perfect, but and I'm not trying to ignore problems, but I do think that too. I do think the future of gaming is looking pretty good overall. I think that for every game that I see that I'm like, I don't like what I'm seeing, there's another one right around the corner. And I'm like, yo, that looks awesome. I want to boot that up. And that's a great place to be in, I would say, for everybody. There's more than enough to go around. So, guys, the only other thing I'm going to ask before I head out is please hit that like button. And I already thanked you guys for all the support. So, if you dropped any super chats or any memberships, I really appreciate that. I want to make sure to give a shout out to Devil Shooter. Devil Shooter does the timestamps for the streams, does a very good job, and I know the community really appreciates what he does. So if you see him in the comments, show him some thanks. I know he appreciates it. We will get more game announcements. I think there's still more to come, dude. I will say, and this is the last thing I will say, I promise, because I didn't really talk about this. It seemed like Sony's still holding back a little bit. Honestly, like I I thought they were going to have an even bigger presence at the Game Awards, and they had a big presence, but I actually thought there was going to be more. And they were like, "Look, man, we're going to show you some Helldivers. We're going to show you Last of Us Part 2 PC. We're going to show you Naughty Dog's new game." Um, that's about it. That's about it. So there's definitely still a lot more they got cooking behind the scenes, and it will be interesting to see what may show up in 2025. So, all right, guys, I'm out. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll probably be back here Sunday. So I hope to see you then. We'll get back on the video grind, on the stream grind. And yeah, so take care, everyone. I will catch you all in the next stream. So till then, have a good one. I felt like I had to say have a good one because I just said take care. And if I said take care, I would have said it twice within like 10 seconds. So no, 5 seconds. Okay, bye.